infinite evolution, the void rises in the Marvel Universe. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 1. Marvel and Mercenaries. At 10 o'clock in the evening, New York under the night is still like a city that never sleeps. There are neon lights everywhere, which are still bright and visible even in the night sky. A tall and handsome man wearing a black cloak is flying at a low altitude 100 meters below the night sky. In this New York, there is an extremely conspicuous building with the English words of Stark Industry marked on it. The man took a deep look at the building. This was not the first time he had seen this very representative building. But no matter how many times he saw it, the iconic building, and the man who held it, Tony Stark, reminded him. This is not the world where he lived in his previous life, but the dangerous Marvel world full of superheroes and various supernatural forces. If he is just a common man without any power, he has to consider whether to hide far away. After all, New York in the Marvel world is not something ordinary people can live in. And the common people not only can't stay here, he has to pray for a few more years, he won't snap his fingers because of a purple sweet potato spirit. Fortunately, in this life, he is not a common man without the ability to protect himself. He awakened the void system of the League of Legends, giving him the ability to protect himself in this dangerous world. The man flew all the way for a while, and landed directly in front of a luxurious manor in Brooklyn. The man skillfully opened the door with the key and walked in. At this time, the man's cell phone vibrated quickly. The man took out his mobile phone and looked at a series of new text messages. The contents of the text messages are Death God, after deducting 5% of the OEM fee, the remaining money has been safely remitted to your account, looking forward to the next cooperation. Dear Mr. Harvey Ambaraka, Number 0 Technology Company has transferred $14.25 million to your account. Currently your balance is $163.24 million. Harvey Ambaraka, seeing this scene, had a smile on his face. A string of zeros on the account, no matter who sees it, will feel happy. The man was named Chu Wei in his previous life, and he was an out-and-out man from the Celestial Dynasty. And this life named Harvey Ambaraka is an orphan. The only person who showed some kindness to him was the director of the orphanage. Although the life in the orphanage was not rich and satisfactory, it also managed to make him grow up. Because of the awakening system 2 years ago, he got the help of the League of Legends Void system and possessed the power of Kha'Zix, one of the Void races. Let him have the invisibility ability to blend into the darkness. As long as he is in the shadows, he can stealth at will, can easily cut the steel blade, amazing physical fitness and almost abnormal level of jumping ability. Harvey also has the long lifespan of the Void Clan in the League of Legends, and most importantly, he has the ability to absorb all energy-bearing substances and evolve. With Harvey Ambaraka having power, it is absolutely impossible for him to feel afraid of his own power, or hide his own power. This is the world of Marvel. As a common man without power, he may die due to accidents caused by battles between heroes at any time in the future. Therefore, he immediately considered how to make money and improve his life. With his near-permanent invisibility ability, he can enter any place silently as long as it is dark. He does have the ability to directly rob all kinds of rich people and even directly rob banks, but that is a crime. It's not that Harvey can't reveal his identity, but he doesn't want to deal with the FBI all the time. In the end, Harvey Ambaraka chose to be a mercenary. As long as he can afford the price he wants, he will take the task and execute it. In view of the different tasks, this profession can be called a killer or a bodyguard. Although this is also a crime in a sense, it will not affect his usual life. After more than 2 years of living as a mercenary, his life has been greatly improved. He bought a lot of manor villas with all the money, and he can also directly use the money to buy all kinds of food and things he wants, so as to make him evolve better. As for the orphanage, he donated $1 million to repay that kindness. It's not that you can't give more money, it's just that it's not a kindness that you have to repay with your life or even your whole life. So Harvey Ambaraka felt that $1 million was enough to repay the kindness of those years. Even in the dark, Harvey can see better than in daylight. Harvey walked through the long corridor to the living room, turned on the light, took out a bottle of fine wine from the wine cabinet, and sat on the luxurious sofa. He poured himself a glass of fine wine, then picked up the tablet placed aside, entered a certain black website and looked it up. There are various missions to assassinate a big shot, protect, or even destroy a certain place. Apart from not accepting orders to assassinate Asians, Harvey would consider accepting other orders, even those from the military. There are many things that the military of various countries cannot do openly. Where there are bright deeds, there will be unsightly darkness. The militaries of various countries and some rich people need agents to deal with some dark things, and agents are undoubtedly mercenaries like them who work for money. Harvey looked at some tasks posted on the dark web until Harvey saw a special task. The task is to go to Afghanistan in a month and kill a person from the military. The minimum reward is 10 million, and the maximum can reach 50 million depending on the completion of the task. Harvey saw the location of the mission, and the person who issued the reward had full knowledge of the target's itinerary. He glanced at the year 2008 in the lower right corner of the tablet, and immediately knew who the person who was offering a bounty for this mission was to be captured. Even if it is clear that the task is to kill people under the protection of the military, there is still a high reward of up to 50 million, which proves that this order is definitely not common. But there are always many desperados who work for money in the world. It is no exaggeration to say that the highest reward of 50 million means that even if it is a multi-person cooperation, as long as the order is completed, they can retire safely. Harvey would have to do several orders to cover this one, but he didn't consider accepting it. On the contrary, because Harvey knew that Tony Stark was about to embark on a trip to Iron Man, he wondered what insurance he didn't buy for the houses under his name. Harvey has been a mercenary for more than 2 years. Except for the beginning, Harvey's follow-up orders are basically big orders. As long as the price is in place, he will accept anything. Naturally, it is impossible for him to only have a deposit of 160 million besides this manner. In fact, Harvey has been preparing since knowing that this is the Marvel world and getting ability. Buy shares of Stark Industries, buy various real estate and configure a series of insurance. He knew that since Tony Stark became Iron Man, New York would soon become dangerous, which meant it was time to cash in. As long as the preparations are in place, he can not only claim a large amount of money from the insurance company openly, but also get wool from Tony Stark. And the price he paid was only to move to his manor villa under the name of another city to live for a while. Thinking that there will be a lot of money soon, Harvey couldn't help showing a smile on his face. Iron Man's order was not accepted, and Harvey continued to browse other reward tasks. A personal contact message arrives. Mr. Death God, we have an assigned task for you. Harvey read this message thoughtfully. Although it is not common to assign missions among mercenaries, as long as they are famous enough and the mission completion rate remains high, there will still be occasional assignment orders. Moreover, the rewards for designated tasks are often sufficient, because this is calculated according to the rules set by the mercenaries themselves. The mission he just completed to assassinate a high-ranking official in Afghanistan was a large order worth 25 million. Since you found me, you should know the price you appointed me to sell, right? So Harvey responded. Meanwhile, on the other side, a bald black man wearing a blindfold saw this response and found that the Death God didn't ask about the specifics of the mission, but directly asked if he knew the price. From this, he felt unparalleled confidence and could even be called arrogance. Nick Fury definitely investigated this Death God before contacting him. In the mercenary world, no one knows who the mercenary codenamed Death God is and what he looks like. There are only a few things that are known to countless people. Death God joined the mercenary world under the code name Death God 2 years ago, and his appearance has always been wearing a black cloak, and this Death God has only received orders of more than 10 million, and his strength is ridiculous. The rewards of more than 10 million are undoubtedly some high-value reward orders that require life and death to complete. Even if many mercenaries cooperate with other peer teams, they may not be able to ensure 100% completion, and they may return in a big defeat. After all, sometimes, what you are facing may be an army with thousands of people fully equipped with firearms. Or enter the institution with layers of protection to steal the most confidential documents. Even with the cooperation of some of his agents, it is difficult to ensure the completion of some tasks. But no matter what big order this Death God takes, he can complete it 100%. No matter how vigilant the target is, how many troops have been mobilized to set up strict defenses, and under what protection. As long as this Death God accepts the mission, the target will die mysteriously in the dark night, and the information will disappear quietly, as if possessing some kind of super ability. It is no exaggeration to say that Death God appeared in the mercenary world, and in just over 2 years, he became a legendary known to everyone in the mercenary world. There is also a rumor in the mercenary world that as long as the bounty you post is accepted by Death God, Then you can drink wine leisurely and wait for your goal to be achieved. It is precisely because of this legendary-like deed, as well as rumors of super ability, that reached Nick Fury's ears. It got Nick Fury thinking a little bit about meeting Death God. However, after investigation, with his means, he was unable to find any more specific information about this Death God other than known information. If he wanted to contact Death God, he had to specify a starting price of 20 million for the task, and there was no ceiling on the price depending on the difficulty of the task. And once you let the other party take over, you have to pay $10 million as a deposit. 20 million, this is US dollars, not Zimbabwean dollars. But Nick Fury also knows that mercenaries are some desperados, and it is not impossible to want to eat black. The premise must be strong enough. Facing a mercenary with unknown identity and unknown ability, who is very likely to be a mercenary with super ability, cheating and cheating are definitely not the first priority. It's only 20 million US dollars, even if he wants to mobilize, he needs to spend a lot of effort to lobby all parties, and he has to write some false plans to mobilize the upper management to mobilize. However, if the Avengers plan can be promoted and the Death God successfully recruited, then Nick Fury feels that this price is not unacceptable. After the money was ready, Nick Fury did not contact this Death God immediately. Until the news of the bizarre and violent death of a senior Afghan official came tonight, and the executor was Death God. It was Nick Fury who really made up his mind and contacted Death God through the dark web. I definitely know, and I don't know if my next words will offend you. However, before explaining the specific tasks and price points, we hope to have an interview with you. Because the reward task I want to release is a bit special. Nick Fury felt hesitation in his heart and typed this sentence. Then Nick Fury waited nervously. No one knows what the origin of Death God is, and it has a lot to do with the fact that Death God only appears on the dark web. As long as the money is in place, time and place. Facing this passage, Harvey naturally did not refuse, but responded directly. Then tomorrow at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, see you at this place, is there any problem? Seeing Death God's response, Nick Fury also directly sent a map location. Can. When Harvey saw Washington, his eyes flashed, but he agreed to meet. Honestly, come back to write a fan, please support the new book, ask for votes. Episode 2. Void System of League of Legends. Afterwards, Harvey shut down the dark net and met only the day after tomorrow, so there is no need to worry. And since Tony Stark is about to start his Iron Man tour, that means it's time for him to wrap up. Harvey opened the stock software, and after going through some procedures, he planned to sell the stocks worth 1.1 billion in batches in the next month. For Stark Industries, which is still an arms giant today, the stock worth 1.1 billion US dollars is not too much, as long as there are people who sell it, people buy it. But if he sells it all at once, Harvey won't lose much money, but this action is likely to cause some troubles in the future. Although he is active in the mercenary world as Death God, Harvey Ambaraka usually reveals his identity to others as a young, promising, and very rich man. And this identity is the person who helped him deal with the source of money, and helped him get it through operation. Every time I help to clean up the source of the money, there is a 5% handling fee, which is undoubtedly quite high. But it can be regarded as spending money to eliminate disasters, which saved him a lot of trouble. With this identity, he can act freely except that he is in a good mood and wants to go there for a while. After selling at a high price this time, he only needs to wait until Tony Stark decides to change his career, causing the value of Stark's shares to plummet, and then he will buy in bulk. Tony Stark will rely on that terrifying mind to drive up the stock value of Stark Industries again. He can make a lot of money from it. When Harvey was dealing with it, his stomach suddenly growled. Harvey is also used to it, temporarily put down the work at hand, and came to the garage. There are a series of beautiful and famous cars in the garage. Harvey thought about changing his clothes and picked an Audi R8. A car key appeared in his hand, and he drove away from the manor. Because of the power of the Void Predator Void Mantis, Harvey has a powerful ability, but also becomes very hungry. But Harvey didn't hate this feeling, because he knew that while gaining some power, there must be some price. And the system just turned him into a foodie, and Harvey didn't think it was a price. Harvey drove the Audi R8 and started to go all the way to the Clinton restaurant he often goes to. In America, if you change to a less prosperous city, at 10 o'clock in the evening, many shops will close early. This is also one of the reasons why Harvey has estates in other cities, but chooses to stay in New York temporarily. Despite the dangers of what is known as Hell's Kitchen, it's also a testament to how lively it is. He has the League of Legends Void system, which allows him to choose one of the 8 heroes belonging to the Void race. They are Void Walker Kassadin, Void Daughter Kaisa, Void Dungeon Beast Rake, and Abyss Mouth Kog'Maw. Void Seer Malzahar, Void Ivel Kuz, Void Reaver Kha'Zix, Void Terror Cho'Gath. The 8 hero templates are all extremely terrifying and powerful, but they also have priorities. Among them, Rake Sai, the Void Daughter, and Kog'Maw, the Abyssal Mouth, all have the ability to evolve, and they will definitely be very strong in the end, but the evolution of these 3 is more difficult. So it was initially excluded by Harvey directly by the method of exclusion. Malzahar, the Prophet of the Void, would give him the power of Prophet and Void magic. If he were to change to a world he was not familiar with, Harvey would definitely choose this. But this is the Marvel world, and according to the current situation, the situation is not much different from what he learned in his previous life, so the power of the Void Prophet is not needed for the time being. Voidwalker Kassadin can give him the terrifying ability of space magic, but for now, the blue star in the Marvel world alone is enough for him to stay. When he chooses the second template later, he may choose Voidwalker, but this is not his initial preference. Vel'Kuz, the Eye of the Void, possesses extremely high intelligence, the ability to dissect, analyze and learn everything, and is very powerful. The only downside, it's a total mage, not enough meat, so put Harvey in the back. The rest is the growth, the most obvious and safest to grow Void Reaver Kha'Zix and Void Horror Cho'Gath. In the end Harvey chose Kha'Zix the Void Reaver first, and it turns out he was right. After he made the initial choice, he was given the ability to escape directly into the darkness, making others completely unaware of his ability and super sharp blade. After 237 evolutions in the past 2 years, he has mastered the ability of Mach 4 high-speed flight, and his physical defense is also extremely strong. Guns can't break through his defense at all, and his hearing may not be comparable to the super hearing of the Void Dungeon Beast, but as long as he concentrates. Harvey can easily hear any subtle sound within a few kilometers, but it is too noisy when it is turned on, so Harvey generally does not consider turning it on. Poison, fire, ice, thunder, and other extremely lethal abilities, it is difficult to pose a fatal threat to him. Harvey knows that the current self is definitely not invincible. After all, there are many heroes with unreasonable abilities in the Marvel world. In the current stage of Marvel alone, there are several fierce people from the Blue Star background, such as Ancient One and Captain Marvel. In particular, the existence of Ancient One made Harvey dare not make too much noise even if he wanted to attract Ancient One, and he would be in big trouble. But Harvey is not in a hurry, because now he is just the beginning of evolution, and he is far from reaching the limit. He can become stronger. It was also because Harvey hadn't reached the point where he could ignore everything, so he didn't act recklessly. As for how to open the second hero template, Harvey is still unclear at the moment. The system only said that this is the first opportunity to choose, and more choices will be opened in the future. So in the past 2 years, Harvey has also lived freely by his own will, obtained a lot of money by doing mercenary missions, and ate delicious food sent from all over the world. Harvey not only evolves by eating food and accumulating a certain amount, absorbing some objects with abnormal energy can also make him evolve. Judging from the previous experience of absorbing common metals such as iron and steel to obtain evolutionary energy, Marvel's specialty vibranium metal can also absorb evolution without accident. It is also because of absorbing the energy of common metal elements such as iron and steel that his strength has improved significantly in the past 2 years. It's just the feeling when iron and steel are absorbed, so that he, who has become a foodie, will not be able to eat for a week, enduring an unbearable hunger. So Harvey never wants to absorb iron and steel, which can be seen everywhere, unless he has to. It's just that in order to have stronger power for self-protection, it needs to be absorbed. Harvey plans to wait for more templates to be opened in the future, and is absorbing a large amount of the so-called hardest metal vibranium, so as to rapidly increase his strength. Even he doesn't know how vibranium tastes, and I hope it won't make him feel sick. Thinking of vibranium and the taste of iron and steel made Harvey feel less hungry. Harvey shook his head, dismissed the thoughts in his mind, and continued to drive to the restaurant. When Harvey walked through the streets of Hell's Kitchen, a flick of a tail stopped steadily at a luxurious restaurant. Although Harvey is of Asian descent, he has a tall, muscular figure and a handsome appearance, plus that expensive suit and the latest Audi R8. It still immediately attracted the attention of some young and beautiful beauties. Harvey has long been accustomed to this. Although he is occasionally interested, he will choose a beautiful woman who suits his taste to fall asleep together. But it's not enough to look at a woman and want to sleep with her. At this time, a young blonde woman walked forward with a charming smile on her face. "Mr. Harvey, you are still so handsome and charming." "Miss Diana, you know I'm not interested in this kind of stuff." Harvey responded with a smile when he saw this beautiful woman with blonde hair and blue eyes wrapped in a suit and uniform, but her figure was even more impressive. "I definitely know, but I don't know which lucky one will be able to capture your heart. Come in with me. I have already informed the chef. They knew you were here, so they took action immediately." Diana smiled when she heard the words, glanced at Harvey with a provocative look in her eyes, then bowed slightly to salute, and said politely, "It's hard to say to capture your heart, but it's not impossible to be tempted for a while. I just wonder if Miss Diana would like to be the lucky one and share tomorrow's breakfast with me." Seeing the proud whiteness, Harvey responded directly without showing weakness when faced with this slightly provocative words. Diana's heart moved when she heard these words, and she looked up at Harvey's eyes with some expectations. Harvey Ambaraka moved to New York just over a year ago. He is a handsome young businessman with a lot of money, and his personality is also approachable and polite. Although Harvey Ambaraka's reputation is definitely not as good as the famous New York playboy Tony Stark, he is still a man who attracts many beauties. If Harvey Ambaraka really wanted to, she would really like to share her early morning breakfast with him. Because once there is a one-night stand, based on the rumors about Harvey Ambaraka in the past, even if they cut off contact immediately, they can directly get a sum of money that is better than her decades of work. It's just that Diana noticed that Harvey's eyes were still extremely clear, so she knew it was just Harvey's joke. Mr. Harvey is, as always, a joker. So Diana suppressed the disappointment in her heart, and responded with a nonchalant smile, while continuing to lead the way for Harvey. Harvey nodded slightly when he heard this, and walked in without saying anything more. After eating a lot of food and filling his stomach, it was already 12 o'clock in the evening, and Harvey drove back home. After Harvey returned home, he went directly to the secret training base underground in the manor, which has intricate terrain. And there are still some targets in the high-speed movement. With Harvey's current strength, there are few in the Marvel world at this stage who can compete with him. The ability to fight against himself is too buggy, so Harvey can only adapt to the strength improvement brought about by his evolution through daily self-training. Your evolution point has reached 1,000,000 points, please choose the direction of evolution. Passive invisible threat evolution level 27, when there is only one person within 10 meters of the target you are fighting with, you will be in a state of isolation and helplessness. Facing enemies with this state, your cutting and piercing abilities will be greatly improved. Taste fear evolution level 32, slash out 16 silent stabs in an instant. If the enemy is in a state of isolation and helplessness, the power will be greatly increased. The void spike evolution level is 40, and it is released instantly to release an explosive stab with poison towards the surroundings. The hit creature will return its own life energy, which can speed up the healing of all its injuries. The current angle is 360 degrees, and the coverage area is thousands of rice. If the target is in a state of isolation and helplessness, the power will increase and the effect of absorbing life energy will increase. The evolution level of leap attack is 35, and a terrifying power jumps and lands in an instant. The jump is greatly improved, the power of the landing is greatly increased, and the flight speed is greatly increased. Void invasion level 50, if you escape into the darkness of the void, your own speed will be greatly increased, and you can ignore all matter and shuttle in the dark void. In the darkness, no creature will be able to find you. The above skills will be further strengthened when you change back to the hero prototype. Change is good. Kha'Zix the Void Reaver. Void Skin Evolution Level 25, Mental Resistance Level 15, Hearing Evolution Level 13. Harvey added Void Skin without hesitation. Although with the ability of Void Fear Cho'Gath, his physical defense will truly evolve to the point where it is almost indestructible. But now Harvey has no choice but to upgrade this Void Skin to increase his ability to resist various attacks. His attack ability is already enough to easily kill countless people, but his physical body is not strong enough to ignore everything. Although he can also absorb the life energy of other people to recover from injuries, there is no need to be too afraid of being injured. But when he needs to use recovery methods, it means that he has encountered an enemy who can injure him. He may need to consider retreating, although retreating is not difficult for him, and Harvey is not a stunned young man. With his ability to evolve, it can be said that the Green Hills will not worry about firewood. I can't beat you now, but I can always beat you dozens of times, hundreds, or even thousands of times. However, it is definitely the best to be able to defeat the target directly without retreating, so increasing the defense strength of the physical body is to reduce the need to retreat. After Harvey chose to evolve, a 5-meter-high shadow of a terrifying mantis with a purple shell appeared behind Harvey. Purple's mysterious and strange light covered the whole body of the mantis shadow, as did Harvey's body. Harvey turned around and looked at the figure, feeling both joyful and complicated in his heart. Harvey knew that only after fully activating Void Mantis Kha'Zix could his strength be maximized and his true strength be brought into play. So Harvey used it once before, and the feeling of completely integrating into the void and controlling the darkness is fascinating. Only when it is activated, the murderous intent and dark thoughts from the void of Void Predator Kha'Zix will continue to ring in his mind. Harvey was worried that it had been activated for a long time. With his current strength, he could not resist the subtle influence of the void, and lost his mind and turned into a monster who only knew how to kill, devour, and evolve. That's why Harvey decided to absorb a large amount of unpalatable iron and steel, so as to allow himself to evolve at an extremely fast rate. Let yourself still have enough strength without using the shadow of Kha'Zix, the Void Predator. You have evolved 238 times, and the Void Skin has successfully evolved to level 26. The evolution points required for the next evolution are still only 1 million. Harvey put on a practice suit and started training. He began to fly, jump and attack in the training base with a total area of more than 3,000 square meters on the 3 underground floors. His current strength is too strong, and he has perfect control over his own strength. One mistake can easily cause a big mess and cause a series of troubles. So Harvey has never neglected to practice, and he only rests for 2 days at most to relax his body and mind every week. This is also Harvey's daily routine after gaining strength. Episode 3. Nick Fury's Note. On the other side, Nick Fury saw that the Death God agreed to meet him, rubbed his brows, and calmed down his excited and nervous mood a little. Sir, may I ask how many of us are going the day after tomorrow? According to speculation, he has a high probability of being a male, right? Need to call Natasha Romanoff agent together? Phil Coulson was always on the sidelines, asking about the situation. There are not many people who are interested in contacting the mercenary codenamed Death God, but Natasha Romanoff agent is one of them. If this Death God really matches their guess and belongs to a super ability user, Chief Fury hopes to draw him into the Avengers. However, the meeting fee alone costs $20 million. It has to be said that this is an extremely outrageous price, so it can be said that it is bound to be completed. You can go with me. Agent Natasha Romanoff is still investigating Harvey Ambaraka, so there is no need to call her first. Nick Fury tapped his fingers on the table, thought for a moment and gave instructions. Harvey Ambaraka was also a person they paid attention to, because they had investigated Harvey Ambaraka, a young rich man who had suddenly appeared in the past 2 years. In the past, Harvey Ambaraka's parents died, and he was an Asian born in an orphanage. Asians will have some benefits in America, but more or less they will be discriminated against and treated coldly. From previous experience, Harvey Ambaraka can be said to be a poor man, and there is no problem. However, when Harvey Ambaraka was 19 years old, he suddenly won a lottery worth tens of millions of dollars, after paying taxes of $5.7 million. Relying on $4.3 million, Harvey Ambaraka chose to invest in Zero Technology and become one of its shareholders. In the follow-up, many people constantly invested in Number Zero Technology and continued to give Harvey Ambaraka dividends. Relying on the money from dividends, Harvey Ambaraka began to enter the real estate and stock markets, as if there was a profitability, and he never missed it, which one he bought would go up. In less than 3 years, Harvey Ambaraka, who was only 21 years old, turned himself into a well-known young rich man in New York. His net worth has increased hundreds of times, and his current net worth is as high as more than $4 billion. Manners, famous cars, and famous watches are all available, which is why even if Harvey Ambaraka is Asian, he is also favored by countless young and beautiful women in New York. In view of the fact that Harvey Ambaraka has not committed any crimes, the high-level officials will not investigate in depth about Harvey Ambaraka's tax payment. Normally, Harvey Ambaraka is a lucky guy. Suddenly, he got lucky and only bought 5 lottery tickets. He won a prize of tens of millions of dollars and reached the pinnacle of his life. The speed of taking off is too fast. If you don't know that there are aliens besides the blue star, and the blue star may also hide other super abilities. When Nick Fury saw this Harvey Ambaraka's resume, he would simply think that this is a lucky guy. However, Harvey Ambaraka's miraculous turnaround and follow-up vicious as if a prophet-like vision for investment and the stock market. Moreover, Harvey Ambaraka's appetite is different from that of ordinary people, and the usual consumption alone is not affordable by ordinary people. But in normal times, when Harvey Ambaraka appeared outside, he was a young rich man who spent money like water and had an unusually good appetite. So let Nick Fury just decide to send Natasha Romanoff to investigate. Hands-on must not be done, because for such a high taxpayer, Harvey Ambaraka did not commit a crime. Their Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistic Support Bureau also has no right to directly bypass the FBI to arrest or detain them. But if Natasha Romanoff is in contact with Harvey Ambaraka, he can find that Harvey Ambaraka really has some unique super abilities. They very much hope to win over Harvey Ambaraka. After all, the crisis that endangers Blue Star will come at some point. But I heard that the work of Natasha Romanoff agent is not going well. It feels like a waste of time, and now she's in a bad mood. Phil Coulson heard that he knew what Natasha Romanoff agent was going to do, and said, "Normally speaking, with the beauty of Natasha Romanoff agent, it is not difficult to lurk around some successful men. Harvey Ambaraka also has a villa estate under his name, and it stands to reason that he would recruit a housekeeper or secretary to take care of it. But Harvey Ambaraka didn't do that. He had no intention of recruiting a housekeeper or a secretary. Usually, Harvey Ambaraka basically stays in the private estate, not knowing what to do. Fortunately, Harvey Ambaraka usually visits various restaurants and hotels to eat delicious food. However, this is also uncertain, because Harvey Ambaraka is basically not picky eaters. He may go to various restaurants, he may eat in the same restaurant, or he may suddenly go to Chinatown to eat stalls. After eating, Harvey Ambaraka would go straight home, only occasionally bringing very beautiful women to spend the night with. So much so that Natasha Romanoff agent has been lurking in various restaurants for half a month, and has not been able to meet Harvey Ambaraka. Although Natasha Romanoff agent will use beauty to seduce men to achieve some tasks, but if you can't meet face to face, don't talk about temptation. Then trouble. Phil Coulson, forget it, I'll pass the message to her personally. Nick Fury heard that Natasha Romanoff's mood was a bit bad because of wasting work, and he also had some headaches. After thinking about it, he agreed with Phil Coulson's words. And if Natasha Romanoff is there, they can provide them with more protection in case they fail to reach an agreement. Then Nick Fury sent an instruction to Natasha Romanoff, so that Natasha Romanoff could temporarily stop the work at hand, take a day off, and gather with them in a building outside Washington the day after tomorrow. The other side. Natasha Romanoff, who had just finished a boring day of work as a waitress and returned to her temporarily rented house, saw this news, and her irritability improved slightly. In the past 2 weeks, she has been working as a waiter in various restaurants, just to wait for the arrival of Harvey Ambaraka. But Harvey Ambaraka never hit one. Natasha Romanoff wanted to change her approach, and after receiving Harvey Ambaraka's target location, she mixed in and started a conversation. It's just that such an action is fast, but it also has a disadvantage, that is, it is very easy to attract suspicion. Why didn't Harvey Ambaraka hold a big reception and invite friends and beauties from all walks of life? Or attend soirees and parties hosted by someone of some notoriety? Then she would have many ways to sneak in and meet Harvey Ambaraka officially. However, it is common for the target person not to act according to his own thoughts, so Natasha Romanoff also adjusted his mood and went to sleep comfortably. As for why Nick Fury asked her to meet and rendezvous, she didn't think too much about it, and it will be clear when the time comes. On the first day, 10,000 words are presented. Please recommend and follow up. Episode 4. What race are you? 2 days passed quickly. At around 1 o'clock in the afternoon that day, Harvey put on the cloak directly to cover his whole body, exuding a gloomy and cold aura. He left the house directly in stealth, and went to the meeting place mentioned by the person who announced the reward. In his usual identity, Harvey would drive or take a plane there, but when using the identity of Death God, there is no need to hide it at all. In less than an hour, Harvey had already arrived at the place the other party said. Harvey looked around and listened for a while, and found that there was no other breath in this building except for the only 3 breaths of life. There are some people wandering around in the distance, staring in this direction vaguely. Harvey saw them wearing suits and ties, like office workers everywhere, but their life energy surpassed that of common people, and their physical fitness was at least higher than that of common people. Harvey can't directly see through a person's identity, but he can judge whether a person is strong or not through life energy. Absorbing these people can give him a lot of evolution points, but Harvey won't kill people for no reason. It's another story after accepting the task. Through the clothing of these people, there are 3 possible identities of these people, one of which are plainclothes FBI, mercenaries, and agents. As for what his identity is, Harvey didn't think about it any further. Anyway, he would know who the person he wanted to meet was. He's not a benevolent mutant, thinking he can't do this and can't do that. If someone exudes obvious hostility towards him, or even attacks him, he will directly kill the other party. Afterwards, Harvey descended directly from the sky to the height of the 6th floor, looking at the beautiful red-haired woman in the window and the other 2 people in the room on the 1st floor. He had already recognized the other party, so Harvey's body went directly through the window and entered the floor. Nick Fury, Phil Coulson, and Natasha Romanoff are all waiting for the arrival of the mercenary named Death God. Harvey popped right into the triangle of Natasha Romanoff, Nick Fury, and Phil Coulson. What exactly do you want me to do? The sound suddenly appeared, causing Nick Fury, Phil Coulson, and Natasha Romanoff to turn around directly. Among them, Natasha Romanoff drew out her gun almost instinctively and pointed it in the direction of the sound. This tall figure in a pitch-black cloak appeared, and the chilly aura emanating from it seemed to freeze the temperature of the entire room. When Natasha Romanoff saw this figure wearing a black cloak exuding a chilly aura, a drop of cold sweat could not help but flow from his forehead. Nick Fury turned around, the only one-eyed eyes contracted. Phil Coulson also immediately drew out his gun, and his eyelids twitched when he saw the appearance of this figure. However, the quality of the agent still made Phil Coulson tense up so that he wouldn't look shocked, but the involuntary swallowing of saliva indicated that he was not at peace in his heart. Seeing this figure, Nick Fury exuded an aura, and felt that this guy wearing a black cloak, if he was holding a scythe, would perfectly fit the description of Death God. Nick Fury knew that he had really found the right person, and he was definitely a strong man with super abilities. I think you must be Mr. Death God. I'm Nick Fury, the person who contacted you on the dark web before. Don't mind if we sit down and talk? So Nick Fury adjusted immediately and said politely. Harvey moved when he heard the words, and sat directly on the sofa. In the eyes of Nick Fury, Natasha Romanoff, and Phil Coulson, this black shadow seems to have moved in an instant. This is the first time we met, and you also came out of instinct, so I don't care about it this time. But in the future, you will not only point guns at me, but also want to shoot, then I will regard this as your hostility towards me and be regarded as an enemy by me. Harvey's voice was a little cold, and he said with a slight warning. Natasha Romanoff and Phil Coulson broke out in a cold sweat when they heard the warning words. Nick Fury heard this unceremonious words, and almost at the same time, the 3 of them labeled this person named Death God as extremely dangerous in their hearts. Nick Fury has been an agent for many years and has dealt with Captain Marvel, knowing how powerful and dangerous people with super ability are. So Nick Fury reacted immediately, with a friendly smile on his face, raised his hands slightly and spread them out, and walked slowly towards the sofa opposite Harvey. We have no intention of being your enemy, and we have no intention of shooting, so please calm down. Let's talk about our affairs in a friendly way. Nick Fury didn't take back his slightly raised hands until he sat down. No matter what you want to talk about, since you have appointed me, you must pay me a deposit of at least 10 million. I think you should have prepared the money, and you won't let me go home empty-handed? Harvey didn't pay attention to Nick Fury's actions, but said directly. Definitely. Nick Fury nodded upon hearing this, also because he knew the rules of Death God. That's why he made contact only after he had prepared the money, so as not to let the conversation collapse and he would die directly. When Phil Coulson received the officer's signal, he also put down his gun directly, and opened several large boxes placed aside, which were filled with stacks of banknotes. When Harvey saw the money, he knew that Nick Fury had made enough preparations before meeting him. Although I probably guessed Nick Fury's idea of wanting to meet myself. Okay, so let's talk now. Assassination, take out an opponent that makes you feel uncomfortable, steal important documents, escort someone, etc. I don't know what task you want to assign me. However, Harvey still didn't expose it. Only when Nick Fury was a common bounty publisher, he started asking. Mr. Death God, let me introduce myself first. I'm Nick Fury, Director of the Strategic Homeland Defense Offensive and Logistics Agency. I'm meeting you this time because I want to chat with you, some things that ordinary people can't understand. Hearing these words, Nick Fury really introduced himself. As for Natasha Romanoff and Phil Coulson, it's too early to make too many introductions until this Death God agrees to join them. Compared to the FBI, which is easy to remember and pronounce, the name of your department is really long and awkward. Harvey murmured in his heart after hearing the words, and then said. As soon as Harvey's words came out, the faces of the three super agents present inevitably showed a bit of embarrassment. Nick Fury pretended to cough, trying to ease the embarrassment, and then spoke seriously. Ahem, this name is a bit too long, and we are also considering how to modify or abbreviate this name. But the name matter is irrelevant. What is important is what I want to tell you next. Mr. Death God, although I don't know your specific ability, but I think you should be a super ability user, and you have full confidence in your own strength. It's just that even if you are as powerful as you, I dare say that the world you have come into contact with is only a small part of the world. Nick Fury started his own rhetoric, trying to convince Harvey to join the Avengers. Harvey dare not say that he fully understands Marvel, but he also understands most of them. It is definitely impossible not to know these things. Are you trying to say that your so-called Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency knows more than me? But Harvey still said calmly. Yes, first of all, you have to be mentally prepared for these things, and you have to have a big picture before you can accept what I said. The universe that we haven't really begun to explore has unknown aliens. They came to Earth once before, and that time fortunately there was a superhero named Captain Marvel who helped us resist and successfully repel those aliens. That's why we humans were spared. If we fail to repel it, the fate of mankind will be unimaginable. Nick Fury nodded when he heard the words, and began to speak in an eloquent voice. It doesn't sound like there's any need to be mentally prepared. Since there are superpowers like me, it's not surprising that there are aliens, isn't it? And even if it's aliens, they can't hurt me. Harvey said unmoved. It's not because Harvey knows the Marvel Universe that he's saying that. Even in another world, once there is a person with a super ability far beyond ordinary people, or a strong person, then it is nothing more than a normal thing to have a powerful race other than humans, that is, aliens. For example, in the League of Legends universe, humans are not the only race. According to human cognition, other races can also be regarded as intelligent aliens. Nick Fury paused when he heard Harvey's words, as if you didn't play your cards according to common sense. Ordinary people, if they heard that there was an alien invasion in the past, and with the help of heroes, human beings successfully resisted the alien attack and saved the fate of mankind. If not in awe, then in surprise, right? After all, without that hero, humanity might have perished. Why this Death God doesn't look surprised at all. Immediately, Nick Fury thought of something, looked at the invisible figure of Death God, and asked cautiously. Excuse me, Mr. Death God, where are you from? What race are you? Are you human or alien? As soon as this question came out, maybe Harvey stopped asking, which made Harvey fall into thinking. And that's why Harvey came to a standstill. According to the previous life and the situation in this body, he is undoubtedly a human being. However, with the help of the Void system, he has the ability to evolve infinitely from the Void race, and has a long lifespan that he doesn't know how long. And he can also completely transform into the appearance of Void Predator Kha'Zix, incarnating a terrifying and frightening appearance in the eyes of others, and his strength will also be stronger. And in the future, he will get more power from the Void race, so is he a human or a Void race now? Harvey never really thought about this question, and now he thinks about it seriously. Nick Fury, Natasha Romanoff, and Phil Coulson saw that the Death God suddenly stopped talking, seemed to be lost in thought, and couldn't help feeling a little nervous. Natasha Romanoff and Phil Coulson heard that Nick Fury said about Captain Marvel, the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Agency, and indeed received some alien materials and technology. So the two still believe in the fact that there are aliens in the universe. Just believing is one thing, the two of them have never actually seen aliens, and this suspected alien Death God is still a very dangerous guy. As humans, as long as they don't exude hostility, they won't worry that this Death God will suddenly kill them. But if this Death God is an alien, he doesn't have the sense of belonging of the blue star or the sense of belonging of human beings. At the moment, let them expose their identities, so it is not necessarily necessary to start confrontation with them at any time. 10,000 words are updated today. This is the first update. Episode 5. I came from the void. Considering the nature of his strength and lifespan, Harvey is undoubtedly more inclined to the void race than humans. Perhaps because he was human in his previous life and the beginning of this life, he has some sense of belonging to human beings, and may sometimes favor human beings. But this sense of belonging, although it will not disappear with the passage of time, will undoubtedly become weaker and weaker with the passage of time and a long life. When Harvey thought of this, he already had a measure in his heart. I come from the void. Under the watchful eyes of Natasha Romanoff, Nick Fury, and Phil Coulson, Harvey spoke. Nick Fury, Natasha Romanoff, and Phil Coulson narrowed their eyes. The bodies of Natasha Romanoff and Phil Coulson wanted to move almost instinctively, but remembering the warning just now, they stopped touching the gun. And that is when Harvey said this sentence. It is detected that the host has not deceived himself or others to avoid himself, and has affirmed his own will in existence. The system officially recognizes the host and will open various functions. Harvey's eyes flashed when he heard the cold voice in his mind. He has been awakening the system for more than 2 years, and he has never known how other hero templates will be released in the future, so he has been waiting patiently. Now he knew that the problem was with himself. Although he didn't reject the void in the past, he originally didn't accept the void completely. At least before Nick Fury asked what race he belonged to and thought about it formally, he never regarded himself as a void race, so that the system did not officially recognize the master. Nick Fury originally confirmed that this Death God is a super ability user, and he thought he was transferred to Big Fish, and wanted to win this Death God to join Avengers. As human beings, as long as the other party realizes that Blue Star is currently in a lonely boat in the universe, it may be overturned by huge waves at any time. Then the other party may agree to his invitation and join Avengers to contribute to mankind, but he never thought that the other party is not a human being, but an alien. This makes it difficult for many words prepared by Nick Fury to export. Blue Star is currently the only home of human beings. If it is destroyed, it will really be gone. But for the aliens, the Blue Star is just a temporary place to stay. Even if it is destroyed, it may at best go back to their hometown. But in view of this Death God has been in Blue Star for more than 2 years, and is only doing mercenary work. If it didn't cause too many devastating disasters to Blue Star, then it proves that the other party shouldn't have thought of destroying Blue Star. Then, my friend from the void, what is your purpose in coming to Blue Star? But Nick Fury still asked in order to know how to communicate with this Death God. At the same time, Nick Fury also gave Natasha Romanoff and Phil Coulson a warning with his eyes, telling them to hold back their thoughts. Although humans have mushroom eggs, even if there are aliens, it should be possible to kill each other. But the price to be paid is too high, so the priority is to judge whether it is an enemy or a friend. See this beautiful planet, come here to travel and experience life. Facing this question, Harvey lied as naturally as breathing. Nick Fury, Natasha Romanoff, and Phil Coulson all thought this reason was absurd, but the other party was unwilling to reveal the real intention of coming, and they could not force the other party to say it. Because of the strength shown by the Death God just now, if they do it, their chances of winning are not high, maybe even 0. Therefore, it is absolutely impossible to fight with the other party, at least with the current them. It is not enough to intimidate this Death God to say something they want to hear. My friend, since you have no intention of hiding your identity, it means that we should have the possibility to communicate? Anyone could see a forced smile on Nick Fury's face. Aren't we talking now? Seeing Nick Fury's eyes and words, Harvey didn't care about his temptation and vigilance, and replied casually. Look at my stupid head. Hearing this sentence, Nick Fury knew it was a friendly signal, touched Yuan Run Guanghua's head, and said like a fool. I took your deposit, tell me, what do you want me to do for you? Harvey didn't bother with this matter deliberately, but acted like a businessman. Although Nick Fury has things to ask the Death God to do, intelligence is more important than those things that can be solved by sending an agent. That's why Nick Fury also said, I had something to ask you, but now I know that you are from the void and an alien, can I buy some information from you? Although I use money to do things, it also depends on what information you want to know. Harvey knew the idea of Nick Fury, an old fox, but he didn't refuse. The information I asked will definitely not test you. I just want to ask, how many aliens in the universe are closer to the blue star, and what is their technological level? Or do they have some special abilities? And is Blue Star currently exposed to other aliens? Nick Fury also expressed his own problems after hearing the words. There are many intelligent beings in the universe, and the level of technology far exceeds that of Blue Star. Space jump, space battleship, interstellar energy cannon, etc. are all available. But those are too far away from the Blue Star, and you know too much now, and it will only increase your troubles. It's hard to say about ability. There are too many races and they have different abilities. Even if you put aside those innate abilities, there is no doubt that the average physical fitness of aliens is far from that of Superman. As far as the distance is concerned, including Blue Star, the other surrounding worlds are collectively called the Nine Realms. Asgard in the Nine Realms, where the Aesir Protoss live, is also the so-called god in your human mouth, the god King Odin. Blue Star has always been exposed to aliens, and many aliens have visited Blue Star in the past. Such as Kree and Skrull. It's just that Odin is still alive, so other races don't dare to be too messy. Naturally, Harvey will not deliberately leak the future, to avoid too much change in the trajectory of the Marvel world, and make all the information he originally knew become elusive. However, Harvey can still explain some answers that do not affect the general situation. As long as there is no big deviation, Thor will definitely be relegated to Blue Star in a few years, and the existence of the Aesir Protoss will also appear in the eyes of many people in Blue Star. When Nick Fury heard Harvey mentioning the Kree and Skrull, he knew that the Death God in front of him knew a lot more than he expected, and it also made the words of the Death God more interesting. Reliability. You mean to say that our human myth, legendary, is true? We humans have always been protected by that Aesir Protoss? But at the same time, this also caused some doubts in Nick Fury's heart. While legendary varies, many are undoubtedly true. If you have a chance in the future, you may be able to meet the Aesir Protoss. Harvey nodded slightly when he heard the words, affirming his words. I have a question, Mr. Death God. You said that Odin is still alive, so aliens dare not mess around. So that means that in the future, Odin in our human mythology may die, right? Natasha Romanoff couldn't help but speak when she heard this. Harvey glanced at Natasha Romanoff upon hearing this, but did not answer. However, Harvey's silence at the moment seemed like a sure sign, making Phil Coulson, Natasha Romanoff, and Nick Fury's hearts tighten. This Death God specifically mentioned that the god King Odin is not dead now, so aliens dare not mess around, which means that once the god King Odin is dead, human beings will also face the arrival of other aliens in the universe. And this Death God did not answer the question of whether Odin will die, which also indicates that even the god King Odin has a lifespan. Nick Fury did not blame Natasha Romanoff for asking questions without authorization. He has also learned the news he wants to get, and he is more determined to form Avengers. It's just that Nick Fury knows that it's impossible to win over this Death God directly. Thank you for the information, Mr. Death God. I don't know the future, do we still have a chance to cooperate? So a kind smile appeared on Nick Fury's face, and he asked friendlily. It depends on the task. As long as you can afford the reward, it's not impossible for me to agree to your cooperation. Harvey didn't completely refuse when he heard the words, but gave an ambiguous answer. Although it is foolish not to earn money, Harvey still won't earn some money. When Nick Fury heard this sentence, he knew that he could invite this Death God if he didn't have to pay the starting price. It can be said that they humans are completely passive, and this feeling makes Nick Fury very disliked. Thank you very much. Although it is the first time we met, we had a very pleasant chat. I hope we can have opportunities to cooperate in the future. But at present they do not have the ability to reverse this situation, so Nick Fury also said with a smile. Hope so. Harvey also knew that Nick Fury was accepting as soon as he saw it, hoping to leave a good impression on himself, so he replied friendly. Afterwards, Harvey disappeared, along with those boxes of dollars. Natasha Romanoff and Phil Coulson saw the Death God disappear and leave as if teleported, and Shindu was a little apprehensive. Sir, he is too mysterious to be sure that what he says is true. Maybe he might be a human being, after all, we can't identify his true identity. Immediately, Phil Coulson looked at Nick Fury, asking for his opinion. The thoughts in Nick Fury's heart were also constantly circling. After hearing this sentence, he let out a long breath, the smile on his face disappeared and became serious, and he said it differently. Phil Coulson, you have a point, it's very difficult for us to secure his identity. But the other party knows the Kree and Skrull. You know, those are aliens I met decades ago when I was young. Except for our bureau, the news never spread, but the other party mentioned it. And according to this Death God's method of disappearing without a trace, it is too easy to obtain a large amount of money. But the other party chose to be a mercenary in order to obtain money. This just proves that Odin in Legendary may be real. Because of Odin's existence, this Death God doesn't dare to mess around in Blue Star. They have no way of knowing the true face of Death God, so even if this Death God kills them, the higher-ups have no way of finding out. What the country and the law can restrict are human superpowers or heroes, because as long as superpowers and heroes are human beings, they have scruples in Blue Star. But for these aliens, their human laws have no effect. The root cause of this problem is that the weapons in their hands are too weak, and they don't have the capital to negotiate terms with aliens. Therefore, the formation of Avengers is inevitable, and it can even be said that it is imminent, because when Odin will die is unknown. Natasha Romanoff, I don't care what method you use, hurry up and contact Harvey Ambaraka, try it out, and see if he is a super ability user. Nick Fury gave instructions directly. Natasha Romanoff also knew the importance of the matter, nodded and left. Phil Coulson, go collect more people with a little weird deeds. I'm going to deal with some trouble. Nick Fury looked at his confidant, and left after giving instructions. The information learned from Death God is invaluable to Nick Fury. However, these things obviously cannot be told to the higher-ups, so the work of fooling must be done well. Episode 6. Spreading the Will of the Void. Harvey flew all the way back to the luxurious manor in New York with the money, put the money in the basement, changed his clothes, and called out the system directly. Immediately, Harvey saw that the system originally only had hero templates, and at the moment had 2 more functions that he hadn't seen before. One is hero sublimation, and the other is hero origin. Harvey clicked into the source of the hero, and found that there was only a shadow of Kha'Zix, the Void Predator, on it. In addition, there are some Void Reaver Kha'Zix with completely different appearances. Sand Guardian Void Reaver, after obtaining it, you will get the ability to transform sand, so that you can change back to the body and hide even more concealed. The exchange conditions are unknown. Deathbloom Void Reaver, after obtaining it, will evolve the ability to mimic plants, allowing you to return to the original body and be as beautiful and harmless as a plant. The exchange conditions are unknown. After the Batian Alien Void Predator is obtained, it will evolve a special mechanized ability, which can directly transmit consciousness to various equipment and manipulate it. The exchange condition requires 100 million void energy. Odyssey Void Raider, after obtaining it, it will evolve into the ability of arcane energy. Let's explore the mysteries of all things. The exchange conditions are unknown. Death Omen Star Void Predator, after obtaining it, will evolve the power of the Dark Star, control this power and become the master of the universe. The exchange conditions are unknown. Harvey knows that although in the League of Legends game, these are just one type of skin, but in the system this seems to have changed. The only thing that can be exchanged requires 100 million energy, which looks extremely amazing. However, since the conditions and difficulty of obtaining it are not yet clear, Harvey did not directly make a judgment that it is impossible to exchange it. Immediately, Harvey took a look at the function of sublimation, and found that the condition required was the source of evolution, which could be exchanged for a chance of hero sublimation. And the conditions for obtaining the source of evolution are also clearly noted above. One source of evolution can be obtained every 1,000 times of evolution. At present, Harvey has only evolved more than 200 times, which is far from the hero's sublimation of 1,000 evolutions, so Harvey doesn't care about it for the time being. The host has successfully recognized the master, and the summoning mission from the void has been released. No matter the method, find a way to spread the will of the void, so that more creatures believe in the void and join the void. The stronger the fate and strength of a creature, the more void energy it will provide the host with its belief in the void. Seeing that Harvey wanted to unlock the subsequent hero templates, the system also started explaining. What is the criterion for judging fate? Listening to the system's words, Harvey asked thoughtfully. However, the system did not answer Harvey's question, as if it fell silent. If the system could communicate, he wouldn't have officially let the system recognize the master today. This is not the first time, so although Harvey is a little helpless, he can only think secretly. But these two are not too difficult to understand, and Harvey just asked casually just now. The strength is very easy to understand. Just looking at the life energy of a creature, Harvey can also see some clues. If the fate is strong, it is most likely to refer to the more famous heroes in the Marvel Universe. If strength is the only criterion for judging, Tony Stark's body is definitely not a powerful one. Maybe that's why there are more criteria for judging fate? Harvey didn't intend to have too much involvement with Tony Stark before, because this may lead to earth-shaking changes in the various futures he originally knew. But now Harvey feels that after Tony Stark becomes Iron Man, he needs to have a chat with Tony Stark. In terms of fate, Tony Stark can be said to be very powerful in the Marvel world, affecting the fate of many things. If his guess is true, then letting Tony Stark believe in the Void and joining the Void should bring him a lot of Void energy. But wanting to spread the will of the Void, Harvey felt that it was necessary to change his actions. He needs to get out of the house to face the outside world, spreading the will of the Void, and in terms of the method, he needs to have an identity that is convincing to countless people. If you start a school and become the principal, it is a way to spread the will of the Void to the common people. It's just that if it is established at present, there are also some disadvantages. If the will of the Void spreads, it may be treated as a cult by the FBI of America. But to be honest, being regarded as a cult by the FBI is not a problem. Harvey is not worried about the threat the FBI will pose to him at all. What Harvey is worried about is that he will be targeted by Ancient One and even Odin. Although it is not the time for the Marvel world, so that countless people don't understand it yet, but the gods in the mouths of various humans in Asgard are now watching the situation in all walks of life. If there is too much trouble, the gods of Asgard may be called in advance, and even Odin may come down to find him in person. In addition, he still doesn't know if others will get some strange powers after they believe in Void. If so, let's not say that others rely on the power of the Void to act recklessly everywhere, and more importantly, it means that this belongs to the level of magic. It is very likely that he will be targeted by the Supreme Mage Ancient One who controls the magic level. With his current strength, in the face of Odin and Ancient One, Harvey can confidently rely on melting into the Void to protect himself and retreat, but he is not sure of winning. Once it collapses, Ancient One and Odin will cause him a lot of trouble, it will become difficult to spread the will of the Void, and he will have to hide XZ everywhere. Until he evolved enough to face the Ancient One or Odin head-to-head, he could move freely. So Harvey directly shelved the idea of establishing a school to enroll students on a large scale, and then spread the will of the Void to those students. And the system also said that attracting powerful or fateful creatures can get more Void energy. After thinking about it so far, Harvey also has some policies, and it is just the beginning. It would be good if he concealed some actions to win over some people. As for the matter of starting a large-scale spread and crazily earning Void energy, it should be easier for him to go to the universe to start a Void God cult casually. And if he wants to go to the universe, the best time is when he has the hero template of Voidwalker Cassidon and can freely travel between Blue Star and other planets in the universe. Harvey is not in a hurry, to be honest, he has a long lifespan. If he is cautious, it is not impossible to start formal operations after killing Odin and Ancient One. Anyway, Odin and Ancient One don't have a few years to live. Definitely the best thing is to be able to pull Ancient One and Odin into the Void of Faith, but after thinking about it, Harvey knows that it is not so difficult to do so. Ancient One is waiting for her apprentice, Doctor Strange, to grow up, and then she will die to make Doctor Strange firm in her own direction and take over the position of Supreme Mage. Odin, as the God King who has fought in the universe for many years and defeated countless powerful enemies. The pride in Odin's heart is definitely not comparable to that of ordinary people. It's not bad that the other party didn't make him believe in Asgard. If Odin and Ancient One didn't die so quickly, let him evolve thousands or even thousands of times. Harvey is also confident that Odin and Ancient One, surrendering to his power, will eventually worship and believe in the Void. It's a pity that neither Ancient One nor Odin has been alive for a few years now. Episode 7. Life is like a play, it all depends on acting skills. After making up his mind, Harvey knew that it was not the time to make a big move, so he didn't think too much about it for the time being. Just going out for a walk, selling a few news, and earning $10 million, Harvey can only say as much as possible about this kind of thing. Harvey was in the swimming pool in a happy mood and swam happily for several hours. It was also an exercise in his delicate command of his own power. He has evolved more than 200 times, and he can cause terrible damage at will. With a single stroke, the swimming pool will directly shatter. In fact, Harvey has been unable to perfectly control his power more than once because he has just evolved and has dismantled a lot of things. This is also the fundamental reason why Harvey doesn't want to recruit regular people to help him manage the manor. The current him has not reached the point where he can control his power as he likes every time he evolves. Once there is some trouble, it will easily affect his current identity. Then Harvey lay on the sun lounger in the yard of the manor, drinking freshly squeezed juice, eating fresh fruit, watching the gorgeous dusk as if drunk. How comfortable and comfortable life should be. After resting for a while, as night fell, Harvey changed into a handsome suit and leather shoes, and this time drove a Ferrari convertible sports car to go out. After dinner, he will do some post-dinner exercise. Just when Harvey just drove out of the manor, a woman blocked Harvey's way. This is a beautiful red-haired woman in a tight leather jacket. It is Natasha Romanoff, who I met in Washington not long ago. Harvey was a little surprised. How could Black Widow Natasha Romanoff find him? Have you exposed yourself? This idea was immediately rejected by him. He thinks he has not done anything out of the ordinary, and he is not high profile. He even travels by car normally, and the places he frequents are various restaurants. Because eating a lot of food is not only a kind of enjoyment, but also brings him many evolution points, so it is one of the things that Harvey must do every day. It's just that Harvey's car was forced to stop. Even though he knew that Natasha Romanoff had the ability to dodge, he couldn't hit it directly. You crazy woman? Pinksy is not like this. So after Harvey was forced to stop the car, he glanced at Natasha Romanoff and cursed directly. Mr. Harvey Ambaraka, I'm from the Homeland Strategic Defense Offensive and Logistics Agency. I'm not malicious, I just want to talk to you about something. Faced with this swearing, Natasha Romanoff's expression remained unchanged, but she took out a certificate and directly explained her purpose of coming. When she knew that Blue Star had been exposed to the universe, even Death God, who was suspected of being an alien, was currently following Blue Star. To test whether Harvey Ambaraka is the task of a superpower, Natasha Romanoff thinks that it can't go on like this. So Natasha Romanoff chose to intercept directly. As long as you see the above, the conversation and temptation will become easier. Leaving aside the fact that I've never heard of the department you're talking about. Is this the attitude you want to talk to me about? Harvey didn't know what Natasha Romanoff was going to do, but he just followed the behavior and thinking of the common people, and said with a blunt face. The Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency is a special force that specializes in dealing with various strange incidents. It has always been hidden in the dark to deal with supernatural incidents. It is not uncommon for most common people to have never heard of the name. I'm sorry for the attitude, but there are some unspeakable secrets on my side. Therefore, facing Harvey Ambaraka's impoliteness, Natasha Romanoff first apologized and then directly took out the gun and pointed it at Harvey. Facing the dark gunshot hole, Harvey already knew the purpose of Natasha Romanoff, and it was nothing more than trying to test whether he was not extraordinary. If you have something to say, there is no need to shoot, is there? What is your purpose? Is it money? How much do you want? I can give you whatever I have. So Harvey shrank his eyes, raised his hands, with a compromising expression on his face, and said in a flattering tone. Natasha Romanoff also noticed that Harvey Ambaraka's slightly changed expression and changed tone made her a little elusive about Harvey's thoughts for a while. It's just that Natasha Romanoff thought about it for a while, knowing that even if Harvey wanted to hide in a crisis, he couldn't hide it, so he moved his finger closer to the trigger of the pistol. Don't. Seeing Natasha Romanoff's movements, Harvey also had a terrified expression on his face, and yelled while curling up his body. He didn't dare to resist at all because the bullets couldn't penetrate his body at all, and he didn't believe that Natasha Romanoff dared to shoot himself directly. Bang! 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 3 consecutive gunshots burst into bloom under the night sky. It's just that Natasha Romanoff's shot, which was originally aimed at Harvey, directly changed direction and shot empty. Then, after a few seconds, Harvey touched his body in shock and found that he was not injured. I'm not dead? You crazy woman, what do you want to do? But soon Harvey reacted, looked at Natasha Romanoff and cursed. It's okay, you can go. Natasha Romanoff was a little disappointed seeing Harvey's reaction, but she didn't continue to talk nonsense. She said something, stepped aside, and walked to the woods beside the road. After Natasha Romanoff's figure disappeared into the woods. Harvey knew Natasha Romanoff wasn't gone yet, but he immediately reignited the engine and sped away. Natasha Romanoff emerged from the woods after Harvey's car disappeared. She has been completely sure that Harvey Ambaraka is not a super ability user. Because if Harvey Ambaraka is really a super ability user, in the face of the upcoming shooting, he will almost instinctively show some extraordinary abilities to protect himself. But Harvey Ambaraka's performance from beginning to end is like a common man. The other party never said to call the police in front of her, and this was in line with his status as a rich man, so a rich man would not be so stupid to say that he wanted to report to the FBI in front of others. That would only make the other party tear up the ticket. Definitely does not rule out that this is Harvey Ambaraka pretending, but if it is acted, then Harvey Ambaraka's acting skills are too real. Immediately, Natasha Romanoff drove the motorcycle and left. And only half an hour passed. Nick Fury sent a message asking what she did to Harvey Ambaraka. Because Harvey Ambaraka at the moment has arrived at the FBI police station, claiming to arrest a crazy woman, and the appearance and clothing depicted are exactly in line with her. Just took the most efficient test. It can be confirmed after testing that Harvey Ambaraka is not a super ability user. Faced with this news, Natasha Romanoff also gave an answer. Can you confirm it completely? Nick Fury was also a little disappointed when he received the news. Can. Natasha Romanoff also immediately gave a positive answer. Well, you don't have to watch Harvey Ambaraka. I'll help you with these troubles. Nick Fury saw that Natasha Romanoff replied immediately, knowing that Natasha Romanoff must have done enough testing, so he withdrew the task of letting Natasha Romanoff observe Harvey Ambaraka. Although he can pay Death God for help if he encounters a crisis in the future, Death God is undoubtedly an uncertain factor. He is not sure that in times of crisis when human beings encounter other aliens, Death God will definitely protect human beings for the sake of money. Now is the beginning stage of their lack of helpers, but it is useless to rush to find superpowers and heroes. He can only pray that things will go well, so that he can be before other hostile aliens really come to harm Blue Star. He can find some superheroes who are willing to contribute to Blue Star. Episode 8. Why is he here? On the other side, after Harvey left the New York Police Department and got into the convertible sports car, a smile appeared on Harvey's face. He has spent a lot of money maintaining this identity, and he doesn't want to expose his life to S.H.I.E.L.D. What he has to do now has not changed much from before. He usually goes to various places to eat, and earns evolution points while enjoying it. Occasionally sees interesting tasks. He can use the identity of Death God to set out a task. What he has to do now is to wait for some opportunities. Harvey knows that the show must be done to the full, so after filling his stomach casually, Harvey did not return to his original manner, but went to a villa in New York. Even Harvey didn't go out anymore. He directly ordered a large number of takeaways to be delivered to his villa, and became an otaku honestly at home. Every time Harvey eats a piece of high-calorie pizza and various steaks and pork chops, the system will prompt him to get dozens or even thousands of evolution points. So 1 million evolution points may seem like a lot, but it's actually not that much. And if the void race is in various harsh environments, they will undergo rapid evolution in order to adapt to the environment, and their strength will increase crazily. It's just that Harvey feels that he can enjoy earning evolution points, so why bother to force himself? There are still 9 years to go before the real arrival of purple sweet potato essence. Just eating food is enough for him to evolve many times. Not to mention that he has long planned to go to Wakanda to absorb a large amount of vibranium when the time is right. Although the smell of iron and steel absorption made him sick, it may also be because of the bad taste. It is a substance that can only be absorbed in extremely harsh environments, so the evolution points given are very significant. During the period of being an otaku, Harvey sold the shares of Stark Industries in his hand. On the one hand, Harvey also reads the dark web, and the reward for Tony Stark has already been accepted in just a few days. This indicates that Iron Man Tony Stark will really appear in the world soon, and when Iron Man appears, the whole New York will become more chaotic. This can also be said to be the official start of Marvel's Level 1 segment. Harvey will definitely not affect these causes and effects, because this is the most important event. If Tony Stark can live and change his mind, it will prove that his line has a high probability of belonging to the line of the main universe. If Tony Stark is dead, it means that his line is just a line in the parallel universe. If the former is in the main universe, when he has the opportunity to unlock the next template, he can give priority to the hero templates of Void Fear Cho'Gath or Void Walker Kassadin. get the ability of one of them to make yourself stronger and better at doing things. If it's the latter, the world he lives in is just a thread in a parallel universe. Harvey will take the initiative to attract various heroes, so that he can quickly get the opportunity to unlock the template and regain the prophet's ability. Anyway, no matter what universe he is in, Harvey already has the confidence to allow himself to survive, evolve constantly, and be invincible. Next, he only needs to look at Iron Man and see where it is headed. Harvey eats 5 meals a day, and each meal can feed 100 people, constantly gaining evolution points. After eating, Harvey will start exercising to further strengthen his control over his own strength. After a month of Harvey's nerd life, Nick Fury was completely dismissed. Before I knew it, more than 3 months had passed. Under the otaku life, Harvey has evolved once a week on average, and has evolved 18 times. Now his attack ability is enough for the time being, so the priority to improve is definitely the defensive ability. Harvey added all of the 18 times to Void Skin, and the original 25 times of evolution. The strengthening has evolved to 43 times. Now his physical strength and defense have reached a very terrifying situation. Harvey has been to the Pacific Ocean and has done many tests. After so many evolutions, he can go deep into the deepest part of the sea with only his physical body without any protection. Moreover, the water pressure on the seabed is a harsh environment. The frequent tests allowed Harvey's body to actively adapt to the environment and automatically evolved the ability to breathe in water 6 times. Now he has evolved a total of 262 times, and the direction of the 6 evolutions is all the evolution of breathing. The evolution brought about by adapting to the environment cannot be chosen by oneself which direction to evolve. This is why Harvey doesn't want to go to various places and torture himself to evolve. After all, some abilities have evolved, and they are not of much use for the time being. On the contrary, it will lead to an increase in the number of evolutions, making him require higher points for autonomous evolution. On this day, Harvey was munching on potato chips and watching the news when the news suddenly changed. According to the information just received by this station, Tony Stark, who has been missing for more than 3 months, has successfully returned to New York. Harvey saw the news that the missing Tony Stark had returned safely to America. And Stark Industries is getting ready to hold a press conference. Harvey saw this scene with a smile on his face, but he did not choose to short the stock of Stark Industries. Because he will buy a large number of shares in the future, if he buys the shares of Stark Industries at a low price after at the moment is short, it will be easy for those people in the financial street to stare at him. Harvey chose to drive out and headed to Stark Industries, intending to see the upcoming press conference with his own eyes. As long as Stark really intends to abandon arms, it means that this world has a high probability of the main universe. Harvey drove the latest Maserati on the roads of New York, accompanied by the sound of some loud gunshots and shattering glass. Harvey was unmoved by this, and quickly passed through with his superb driving skills and hearing. Soon, Harvey came to the venue where Stark Industries was about to hold a press conference. When Harvey got out of the car, he attracted some people's attention. After all, this man is also one of the billionaires in New York. Mr. Harvey Ambaraka, I'm from Yuanqing Technology, may I have a talk with you? A white man in a suit and leather shoes and glasses saw Harvey approaching him and said politely, I'm here to see Tony Stark. If you want me to invest, first try to make your plan bigger. I will invest as long as the time is right. Harvey said something casually with a smile, and then walked into the venue. Specially to see Mr. Tony Stark? Mr. Harvey Ambaraka, are you friends with Tony Stark? But you seem to have never attended any exhibition or banquet held by Tony Stark, have you? Some beautiful reporters heard Harvey's words and took the initiative to go forward to interview the reason. You're right, I've never met Tony Stark formally. But Tony Stark, as someone richer than me. If possible, it would be better to get acquainted with Tony Stark. Harvey replied politely when he heard the words. Is this a signal that you intend to invest in Stark Industries in the future? A beautiful news reporter heard these words and immediately asked a question. Harvey Ambaraka is 21 years old and one of the rising billionaires in the past 2 years. In just over 2 years, Harvey Ambaraka's net worth has changed dramatically, reaching an astonishing net worth of more than $3 billion, which can be said to be one of the miracles in New York. Countless people know that this is just the starting point for Harvey Ambaraka, and it is hard to estimate how amazing Harvey Ambaraka's wealth will be in the future. If Harvey Ambaraka intends to take a stake in Stark Industries, he may do so in the future. maybe it's possible or maybe it's not. Okay, that's the end of the answer. How about letting me watch the press conference quietly? After hearing the words, Harvey did not give a clear answer, but after giving an ambiguous answer, he politely refused the reporters who wanted further interviews. It is impossible to give a clear answer in front of reporters. Even if you want to give a clear answer, you need to think carefully before speaking. Otherwise, it is easy for these reporters to exaggerate their words and lead to a series of troubles. Although Harvey can make these people lose their jobs or even disappear with their wealth alone. But now his identity is Harvey Ambaraka, one of the richest people in New York in recent years. These things must not be done casually, at least not in his current identity. Afterwards, Harvey stepped into the venue, where there were already many reporters and some celebrities waiting. Phil Coulson was originally talking to Pepper Potts, and wanted to know something about Tony Stark's escape through her. After all, surrounded by the heavily armed 10 rings, he managed to break out of the encirclement with only a slight injury to his arm. This is obviously not something that a commoner can do. Why is he here? But Phil Coulson suddenly saw that Harvey Ambaraka had also come, and said with some surprise. Seeing Phil Coulson, who claims to be a unit with a long list of hard-to-pronounce names, Pepper turned his attention elsewhere. So Pepper also looked over and saw a handsome Asian man in a suit with a tall figure. Harvey Ambaraka, Mr. Phil Coulson, are you surprised he's here? Little Pepper asked with some curiosity and doubts. May I ask, Miss Potts, are Mr. Harvey Ambaraka and Mr. Stark friends? Phil Coulson looked at Pepper and asked politely. No, Tony and I have both heard of his reputation, but I'm pretty sure Tony hasn't met him. Hearing this, little Pepper shook his head without any hesitation. She knew everything about Tony Stark's itinerary, and she basically knew all the people Tony had contacted, and Harvey Ambaraka was not among them. Harvey Ambaraka never had an appointment or anything to visit Tony. Okay, excuse me. Phil Coulson knew to keep asking, but he couldn't get any useful information, so he didn't continue to ask, but left to the side, and didn't continue to bother Pepper. Harvey himself found a place with a good view at random, looking at the table in the center more than 10 meters away. Episode 9. Don't you feel heartache? Soon, Tony Stark with bandaged hands came to the podium under the escort of his bodyguard Happy Hogan. Would you all sit down, please sit down, so you can all see me? I can order whatever I want. Although Tony Stark was injured and his complexion was not very good, his mouth was as casual as ever. As soon as these words came out, the reporters present and other visiting guests basically sat down. Tony Stark sat in front of the podium and saw Harvey Ambaraka, who stood out from the crowd at the end. Although Harvey Ambaraka has not met officially, there have been many rumors about Harvey Ambaraka in recent years. So Tony Stark has heard of this guy, and this guy's identity is quite easy to remember, belonging to one of the few rich Asians in New York. To him, Harvey Ambaraka was a guy who got rich by shit luck, and there was nothing real about it. So for Harvey Ambaraka, he just remembered the extent. However, although the other party is not as rich as himself, he is undoubtedly a wealthy tycoon. It is not difficult to guess the purpose of the other party's visit. It may be to talk about investment. Facing Tony Stark's gaze, Harvey just smiled and nodded. If it were Tony Stark before, he would definitely have a chat with this Harvey Ambaraka after the official press conference. Let's see if this guy is here to invest, but Tony Stark has just experienced that incident, and his body is also injured, so he doesn't have that much energy. And he also knows what he will announce next. How much impact will it have on the stock of Stark Industries, so Tony Stark has no such thoughts. Afterwards, Tony Stark began to give a speech on the classic scene remembered by countless people. So I'm going to close down as soon as possible, the weapon production department of Stark International Corporation. When Tony Stark decided that Stark Industries would abandon the arms industry, it immediately caused an uproar and attracted various doubts. The big bald stand next to Tony Stark, at the moment, forced a smile. When Harvey saw this extremely familiar scene, a smile appeared on his face. All of this is so familiar that he is now 9 levels sure that this is Marvel's main universe. Tony Stark noticed just now that this Harvey Ambaraka was not at all surprised by his sudden statement that he wanted to close the weapons production department, but seemed happy instead. If he remembered correctly, this Harvey Ambaraka also bought the shares of Stark Industries, and the amount was not less than $500 million. But now Harvey Ambaraka did not show disbelief, anger, and other emotions because the stock was about to fall sharply. What is this? Tony Stark was also a little puzzled. But while Tony Stark was thinking, he noticed that Harvey Ambaraka had turned around and seemed to be planning to leave. Colonel Rhodes stopped him. I want to talk to him. Seeing this, Tony Stark immediately called out. Which one to stop? Although Rhodes didn't understand Tony Stark's behavior, but at the moment he heard his good friend's words, he didn't refuse, but he was a little strange who Tony wanted to stop himself. That Harvey Ambaraka. Tony Stark said hastily. And when Tony Stark wanted Rhodes to do something. Phil Coulson has come to Harvey. Mr. Harvey Ambaraka, I am an agent of the Homeland Strategic Defense Offensive and Logistics Agency. Can we talk? Phil Coulson asked with a polite smile. You are with that crazy woman. I have been hiding for so long, and you are still haunted? Harvey saw Phil Coulson stop him, and he was not polite when he heard these words. Mr. Harvey Ambaraka, that was just a misunderstanding, and we meant no harm. We just want to ask you for some information. I can assure you that I will never hurt you like that crazy woman. And I don't have any guns on me. Phil Coulson also heard about the news that the FBI had questioned their department. He showed a bit of embarrassment on his face and patted his chest, pockets, trousers and other places with both hands, indicating that he did not carry any dangerous weapons on his body. What the hell do you want to talk to me about? Harvey knew that if he forcibly escaped, it would only attract more suspicion, so he looked at Phil Coulson suspiciously and said, This is not the place to talk. If it is convenient, you can choose a place where you think you are safe, but there are not many outsiders. I can fully guarantee that I will never hurt a single hair of your hair. Now their Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency is extremely short of help, and Avengers has never made any progress. So Phil Coulson doesn't want to give up anyone who has a certain probability of having a super ability. There were some reasons why Harvey Ambaraka was targeted by them, but Natasha Romanoff was a little too hasty and reckless in doing things that time. So Phil Coulson wanted to chat with Harvey Ambaraka again to see if he could make some progress. You seem to be busy? I'm Tony Stark. Harvey Ambaraka, although we are meeting for the first time, I think you must have heard my name, just like I have heard of you. Looking for a place to chat? It won't take up too much of your time, and mine is just as precious. At this time, Tony Stark watched the two people standing at the gate talking. Without Rhodes trying to stop him, he went straight up and greeted them naturally. It's just that his conceit and arrogance can't be rejected in his words. Can. Harvey saw that Tony Stark actually took the initiative to find him, his eyes flashed, and he agreed. Then follow me. Tony Stark was not surprised when he saw that Harvey Ambaraka didn't refuse, he just said something casually, and walked straight away. Take Harvey Ambaraka and Phil Coulson, who came over, and went to the room next to the press conference venue. Harvey Ambaraka, as far as I know, you have bought a lot of our Stark Industries stocks in the past 2 years. Based on the current market value of our Stark Industries, the value is about $1 billion. It is rumored that you have always bought stocks for profit, not for loss. But because of the news I announced today, your wealth should drop significantly. But you don't seem to be surprised or angry at all, but rather happy. Don't you feel heartache for your wealth to drop sharply from now on? Tony Stark poured himself a glass of water and asked with some tentativeness in his words. You must know that his luxurious Stark Manor cost tens of millions of dollars. $1 billion is a huge amount of wealth that many people can't imagine in a lifetime. If so much money is reduced by more than half, ordinary people can't bear it at all, and there may even be sudden ups and downs, and they will just feel bad. Episode 10. Who are you? As soon as Tony Stark's words came out, Phil Coulson, who was standing by the side, moved in his heart and also looked at Harvey Ambaraka. It is precisely because of this vicious vision that is almost like a prophet that the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau has focused on Harvey Ambaraka. If Harvey Ambaraka made a mistake, they wouldn't doubt it, but Harvey Ambaraka never missed one. This time Tony Stark suddenly announced that he would stop making weapons, which was a sudden drop. What's wrong with me? I sold all my stocks more than 2 months ago. The bad news you announced today will cause the stock of Stark Industries to plummet. It only proves that my move was a smart one. Facing Tony Stark's temptation, Harvey said with the same smile on his face. You said you sold it long ago? Tony Stark said in disbelief when he heard these words. When Phil Coulson heard these words, he immediately took out a tablet and checked it. It was discovered that Harvey Ambaraka sold the stocks in his hands at almost the highest price within 1 month before Tony Stark disappeared, and sold the stocks worth $1.13 billion in batches. Before Tony Stark announced today that he was about to stop producing arms, the stock of Stark Industries had been on a steady rise. As long as you buy and hold the stock of Stark Industries, it is no exaggeration to say that you can make money just by lying down every day. However, Harvey Ambaraka chose to leave the market, and this purchase and sale made Harvey Ambaraka profit at least more than $300 million. This made Phil Coulson look at Harvey Ambaraka in disbelief. Who is this person? Is it a super ability, or does he really have such a supernatural vicious vision? But thinking of his purpose of stopping Harvey Ambaraka, Phil Coulson was relieved. For more than a year, it has increased by a lot of percentage points and received a lot of dividends. I think I have earned enough and naturally sold it. Facing Tony Stark's unbelievable gaze, Harvey Ambaraka spread his hands and said with a smile. Tony Stark also noticed the appearance of the person who came with him, looking up the information just now. It seemed natural to him now to hear Harvey Ambaraka, who looked leisurely and happy. If he hadn't suddenly announced the discontinuation of weapons today, the stock of Stark Industries would still be on a booming trend. Normal people would just keep investing, because they would get higher and higher in the future, but in the end, all this could make Harvey Ambaraka run away? No wonder other people are so excited, but you don't look panicked at all, and you're even a little happy. But how long will your shit luck favor you? Tony Stark looked at Harvey Ambaraka, and there were still some doubts in his words. That's right, in Tony Stark's eyes, the reason why Harvey Ambaraka rose so quickly is shit luck. Ha ha ha, Tony Stark, you are really not polite at all. In terms of wealth, I am still far behind you. In terms of intelligence, I can't compare to you who have the mind of a genius scientist. It doesn't matter if you regard what I do as shit luck or other things. But it still doesn't affect my money, does it? Harvey was not angry when he heard the words, and said with a smile. So you came to my press conference today, why? To show off your foresight to me? Tony Stark looked at Harvey Ambaraka, who was smiling extremely brightly, feeling annoyed for some reason, and asked. Phil Coulson also looked at Harvey Ambaraka from the sidelines. To be honest, he was also very curious why Harvey Ambaraka, who never attended formal occasions, suddenly came to see Tony Stark's press conference today. Up. Showing off your foresight to you, I never thought about it at all. I just want to come and see you because you have been missing for a few months. Can you tell me where you came from? So that I can hide from that place when I go on vacation in the future. Harvey shook his head when he heard the words, and smiled lightly. Afghanistan. Hearing that Tony Stark didn't come to show off, his face and tone eased a lot, and he revealed a name. Afghanistan, where terrorists gather together, you really went to a remarkable place. There was some surprise on Harvey's face when he heard this. Yes, but even if I don't tell you, you can't go to that kind of place, right? After all, your business scope is nothing but mediocre real estate and stock markets. You haven't created something unique to you to add value to your wealth. Harvey's surprised expression made Tony Stark feel a little bit of benefit. The words were still harsh, but it also pointed out the lack of Harvey's current means of making money. It's real estate and the stock market now, but not necessarily in the future. Maybe you will still ask me for help in the future, maybe you need my help. Harvey didn't pay attention to Tony Stark's slightly mocking words, but said with a smile. Is there anything I can ask of you? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Tony Stark first looked at Harvey suspiciously, then he laughed and said firmly. Don't talk too much, after all, a genius like you can create epic making advanced technology many times. That means everything is possible, doesn't it? Seeing Tony Stark's proud appearance, Harvey poked his chest with his index finger and said a word. Phil Coulson was not surprised to hear of advanced technology, because Tony Stark's mind is undoubtedly world famous. And Tony Stark saw Harvey's movements, and heard these words, his eyes shrank. Apart from the dead Ethan and Colonel Rhodes, no one should know about the nuclear reactor on his chest. He was sure that Rhodes had never dealt with Harvey Ambaraka, so how did Harvey Ambaraka know about it? Who the hell are you? Tony Stark's expression changed, and he looked at Harvey solemnly. Harvey Ambaraka, what you call shit luck? Harvey didn't answer this question after hearing the words, but just responded to Tony Stark based on Tony Stark's impression of himself just now. I think we will have some contact in the future, so let's stop talking this time. Immediately, Harvey stood up and walked outside. Phil Coulson had no idea what went wrong in the conversation between Harvey Ambaraka and Tony Stark, causing Tony Stark's attitude to change suddenly. But Phil Coulson doesn't want to let Harvey Ambaraka go. He wants to have a detailed chat with Harvey Ambaraka. Mr. Tony Stark, I am Phil Coulson, an agent from the Homeland Strategic Defense Offensive and Logistics Support Agency. I want to consult you about your successful breakaway from Afghanistan. But you should be busy now, so I will visit you next time. So Phil Coulson politely introduced himself to Tony Stark and put his business card on the table. Let Tony Stark leave some impressions of himself, so that the conversation will be convenient when we meet next time. Then, Phil Coulson followed immediately. Tony Stark looked at Harvey Ambaraka leaving, his eyes flickering. He was a little elusive about Harvey Ambaraka, but now he also knew that Obadiah Stane must be looking for him. He also wants to talk to Obadiah Stanislav about his current thoughts. Episode 11. Harvey's attitude. Harvey left the press conference all the way and went to his luxury car. Let's go to a place where I feel safe, and I will listen to what you have to say. Harvey Ambaraka looked at Phil Coulson, who was catching up, and beckoned him directly to get in the car. Phil Coulson was not polite either. He opened the car door and sat in. Harvey drove away and drove to the location of his manor. What exactly are you looking for me for? Along the way, Harvey asked casually. Mr. Harvey Ambaraka. Our Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency is a special force specially established by the International Security Council to deal with various strange incidents. First of all, I can assure you that our department has no malice towards high taxpayers like you. It's just that your rise is undoubtedly very fast and smooth, so after our judgment, you may have some super abilities. So we want to talk to you. If possible, we hope to invite you to join us and contribute to Blue Star. Phil Coulson didn't hide anything when he heard the words. He formally introduced himself and stated his purpose by the way. That is to say, you have no proof, just because you suspect that I have a super ability, so you sent that crazy woman to test me? Or the kind of shooting and probing? That doesn't look at all like a smart move to talk to me and get me to join you. Harvey didn't give Phil Coulson a good look because of his friendly attitude, but continued to criticize the bad impression Black Widow Natasha Romanoff gave him. Because we encountered some things that day, the agent acted a little anxiously. However, although she has brought you some shocks, she should not have really hurt you, so please forgive me. Phil Coulson was a little embarrassed when he heard Harvey's unceremonious attitude. If he is from Common, Phil Coulson's attitude can be tougher, but facing Harvey Ambaraka, a high-paying taxpayer who has no black material and no excuses, his attitude should not be too fierce, to avoid leaving a worse impression. Even if Harvey Ambaraka is not a superpower, according to Harvey Ambaraka's various deeds over the past 2 years. If Harvey Ambaraka is given some time to rise, he may become an investor in some of their projects someday in the future. She didn't hurt me, but she scared me for a while, and I didn't dare to go out much. Harvey's face softened a little, but there were still complaints and dissatisfaction in his words. Mr. Harvey Ambaraka, I am deeply sorry for this. Phil Coulson also honestly apologized for Black Widow Natasha Romanoff. The ideal of contributing to Blue Star is great, provided that your internal original intention has not changed from beginning to end, and you have not become a tool of some politicians. But I think it's impossible for you not to be controlled by those politicians. After all, your department was established by the International Security Council. I'm afraid it has been under their control from the beginning to the end. You can't move freely in many things, right? And I'm just a commoner who has some money and doesn't have to worry about work and money. So please don't bother me again. If in the future I really receive some help and shelter from you, I will sincerely express my gratitude to you. But you should know, definitely not now. Harvey stopped the car, said some thoughts, and finally distanced himself from the relationship. He can collect money to do things depending on the task, but it is absolutely impossible for him to join Avengers and be restrained and instructed by others. What he wants to do depends entirely on his own wishes. If others want to order him, they have to see if the other party has such a great ability. At least the SHIELD of the Hydra branch did not, let alone American politicians, and the denunciation of the masses could not affect him. He doesn't want to reveal his identity now because the time is not yet ripe, and he doesn't want to break the current comfortable life and affect the speed of his evolution. But SHIELD went too far, so he taught SHIELD and America a lesson. Phil Coulson saw the car stop, and from Harvey Ambaraka's mouth, he heard the dislike of politicians and the idea of not wanting to be under the control of others. Nor could he deny that Harvey Ambaraka was telling the truth. I see. Thank you, Mr. Harvey Ambaraka, for being able to talk to me about your thoughts during your busy schedule. So Phil Coulson was silent for a while, apologetic on his face, and he spoke. Then, Phil Coulson opened the car door and got out. Although the conversation was not very pleasant, Phil Coulson undoubtedly confirmed Harvey Ambaraka's thoughts and attitude. Although he is still not completely sure whether Harvey Ambaraka is a super ability user. But through his attitude, Phil Coulson can be sure that whether Harvey Ambaraka is a superpower or not, he will not agree to join them. Because no matter how well-sounding the original intention of the establishment of the Land Strategic Defense Attack and Logistic Support Bureau, it is still an organization that will be influenced by politicians in essence. This is indeed some of the difficulties and obstacles that they will inevitably bring about when they want to win over other people. It is impossible to completely eliminate this kind of hindrance, so they can only find a way to blur the influence of other people on this kind of thing. After Harvey saw Phil Coulson get off the car wisely, he didn't talk nonsense and drove away directly. Phil Coulson sent a message asking someone to pick him up. It is not wise for him to directly contact Tony Stark now, because Stark Industry is about to usher in a period of sharp stock decline. This will definitely cause Tony Stark to be in some troubles. If he is not in a good mood, then it is impossible to have a good chat with him. As for the contact with Harvey Ambaraka, he has no intention of reporting it, because even if these things are passed back, it will only make other people in the department feel uncomfortable. Harvey went all the way back to his luxurious manor. Because after being in contact with Phil Coulson, Harvey can now return to the manor that he has been away for several months with peace of mind. Because people come to clean it regularly every week, there is no dust accumulated in the manor. Harvey returned home and turned on the TV in the hall. The news about Stark Industries was overwhelming the TV. Countless people said that Tony Stark lost his mind, and some hosts made extremely exaggerated performances. Things like stocks may rise and fall at any time because of some rumors and deeds. Not to mention, Tony Stark's statement to stop producing weapons is a bombshell. Harvey opened the stock software, and as expected, the stock of Stark Industries was emitting a green light and falling constantly. Countless casual investors holding shares and some large investors holding more shares are frantically selling their stocks. I'm afraid that every second at night, the value of the stocks in my hands will drop every second at night. Harvey knew that when Tony Stark announced the transformation of the energy industry and showed results, the value of the stock would rise sharply. But now the stock's decline is just the beginning, so it's not yet time for him to buy a large number of stocks. Episode 12. Tony's investigation. Harvey knew that it was absolutely impossible for Tony Stark, such an arrogant and conceited person, to directly believe in the void. He has to do some preparation and inducement to wait for the time to come. But now it's just the beginning. Tony Stark has not officially admitted that he is Iron Man, so there is no rush. When Tony Stark discovers that the arc reactor on his chest will have some negative effects on his body. That timing was actually the time when Tony Stark most wanted to be healthy. Although Tony Stark later obtained various diaries left by his father because of SHIELD's enlightenment, he invented new elements and survived that crisis. But that time was undoubtedly the best time for him to win over Tony Stark. Harvey remembered that it wouldn't be long before Tony Stark got that moment, and now he just had to wait. Harvey has many ideas in mind, but it has not yet reached the stage of implementation. He was raised in an orphanage before reincarnating into this Marvel universe as an adult. Because of his Asian descent, he was excluded from the orphanage. However, as a person with an adult soul in his previous life, he would not take it seriously when he was usually excluded. Instead, he worked hard to learn to adapt to this world. He once also thought that if he really could only be a common person in this life, he will find a way to return to the Celestial Dynasty in this life before 2011. Marvel has a long-rumored saying that the rich rely on technology, and the poor rely on mutations. In terms of technology, Harvey doesn't have that much money, and he doesn't have that much brains. Mutations are often accompanied by accidents that can easily bring death. He wasn't sure if he was as tough as those superheroes in the Marvel world. So Harvey knew that if he was just a common man himself, the biggest opportunity would be to take out a loan at the right time and spend all his savings to buy the shares of Stark Industries. If he doubles his net worth by this, even if he can't be said to be a top rich man in this life, he will definitely have no worries about food and clothing, and he can live a happy life. It's just that the systematic awakening changed his life by huge amounts of changes, but Harvey has never been impatient. Now Harvey also has something to do, which is to temporarily mortgage the various properties under his name in order to cash out a lot of money. On the other side, after Tony Stark and Obadiah Stane fully expressed their thoughts, Tony Stark hurried back to his Stark manor. JRVIS, help me investigate Harvey Ambaraka. Tony Stark came to his underground studio and said directly. As long as he wants to know all the news that appears on the internet, even some top secrets, it is definitely not difficult to investigate Harvey Ambaraka. Okay, sir, here's the call for you. A pleasant mechanical synthesis male voice directly responded to Tony Stark's order. Soon all the information that Harvey Ambaraka could investigate appeared directly in front of Tony Stark. Tony Stark had only heard some rumors about Harvey Ambaraka before, but because of Harvey Ambaraka, he found out from somewhere that he had successfully produced the arc reactor. So Tony Stark also looked at it seriously, wanting to know where this person came from. Harvey Ambaraka was considered a child prodigy when he was a child. Even in a public school that only served the poor, Harvey Ambaraka had skipped several grades in a row. He himself entered MIT at the age of 15 and graduated with the highest grades. So Harvey Ambaraka stuck in front of Tony Stark is at best a less mediocre genius. It was just because of Harvey Ambaraka's Asian identity that he grew up in a bad situation. Even if he wanted to integrate into the school and other groups in the class, he couldn't integrate into it, so the data showed that Harvey Ambaraka's previous personality was relatively taciturn. Until the age of 18, almost 3 years ago, Harvey Ambaraka bought a lottery ticket and won a prize. It also started from winning the lottery, and the rise of Harvey Ambaraka can be called the beginning of legendary. These are all common topics in New York in the past 2 years, and Tony Stark did not feel depressed but began to study them patiently. Among them are some moves made by Harvey Ambaraka, all the fortunes, including some moves of Harvey Ambaraka recently. About a year and a half ago, Harvey Ambaraka relied on the huge amount of money he earned to start buying shares of Stark Industries intermittently. A total of more than $800 million was purchased. It can be seen that Harvey Ambaraka is very optimistic about their Stark Industry. Harvey Ambaraka sold the shares in batches, and the information about the shareholders, which is impossible to know in the eyes of ordinary people, has nothing to hide in front of Tony Stark. It actually sold the shares more than 2 months ago. Tony Stark looked at all this and felt incredible. Harvey Ambaraka used only $800 million during the 1.5 years. And within this year and a half, including the rising point of Stark Industry and the regular dividends of Stark Industry, coupled with Yugao's exit, Harvey Ambaraka earned hundreds of millions of dollars in just over a year and a half. This does not require Harvey Ambaraka to use too much manpower, just invest in the stocks he is optimistic about. It's just that Tony Stark couldn't understand the reason why he suddenly did this after seeing Harvey Ambaraka from Stark Industries. The dog didn't believe Harvey Ambaraka's previous statement that he had made enough money to sell it. You must know that he decided to change his career. Not making weapons is something only he knows. Even his most trusted Pepper didn't know before he held a press conference. Without this incident, it would be impossible for Stark Industries shares to fall. But Harvey Ambaraka just sold it, and managed to run away before Stark's stock was about to plummet. Before people make a decision, there are often some reasons. Not to mention, the decision to sell a large number of stocks that were originally bull stocks in your hand requires careful consideration. Even if Harvey Ambaraka decided to sell shares during the time he was missing, it would have been understandable to him. Facts have proved that during the more than 2 months of his disappearance, many people also sold all the stocks in their hands. Although many people bought it, the stock did not fall, but it did not increase much in value. But Harvey Ambaraka decided to sell before he went to Afghanistan and disappeared 2 months before. And it was sold in batches, so that Harvey Ambaraka ran when he was at the top. Harvey Ambaraka has never been too deeply involved with the military and the country. This made Tony Stark unable to understand the logic of Harvey Ambaraka's behavior, no matter how he thought. Harvey Ambaraka is rumored to have a prophetic ability. It's just that someone like Tony Stark who believes in science and technology, how could he believe it? JRVIS, from the beginning of this year to July of this year, let me have a look at the news about Stark Industries. So Tony Stark didn't give up, but gave an order directly. Okay, sir. JRVIS did not ask the reason, but just obeyed the instructions and retrieved all the news about Stark Industry in those few months. Tony Stark stroked his chin, pondering the news of those months. It's just that the news in those few months, except for the scandal that has been denouncing the disaster caused by Stark's industrial weapons in the past, is basically positive. Even if those scandals are not suppressed by other shareholders on the board, it will not affect the stock value of Stark Industries in the slightest. After all, as long as their advanced level of Stark industry and weapon production has not been surpassed by others, they will have the value contained in weapons. The more Tony Stark researched, the more he felt that Harvey Ambaraka was not a simple person. JRVIS calculate Harvey Ambaraka's stock, plus inherent assets, the current total wealth. Tony Stark asked casually. Sir, please wait a moment, the assets of Harvey Ambaraka Bank are being counted, as well as the valuation of various properties and land under his name. It's been estimated, and after deducting odds and ends, the current total value of Harvey Ambaraka's wealth is about $4.827 billion. JRVIS also quickly responded to Tony Stark's instructions, giving an approximate amount. When Tony Stark heard this amount, his eyes showed surprise, and he couldn't help but feel a little admiration in his heart. In less than 3 years, Harvey Ambaraka spent more than $4 million to turn his wealth to this amazing amount, which has to be said to be a very remarkable thing. Moreover, no one under Harvey Ambaraka needs to be paid, and all of them belong to individuals. Harvey Ambaraka is only 21 years old now, and will be 22 in a few months, which belongs to the stage of life and career that has just begun. Tony Stark definitely knows that life is not easy. He'd like to think that this is already the peak of Harvey Ambaraka. But the stock of Stark Industries plummeted, so Harvey Ambaraka was lucky to run away. It proves that Harvey Ambaraka's legendary road has not stopped, but is rising step by step. Tony Stark thought of the day, and Harvey Ambaraka told himself that maybe one day he would ask for something from him. The admiration in Tony Stark's heart dissipated. No matter how downcast he was, he would never ask Harvey Ambaraka for anything. What's more, it is impossible for him to fall down, even though Stark Industry has experienced a sharp decline. But he can turn it all around and keep Stark Industries still standing. If there is such a day, he will definitely find a way not to ask Harvey Ambaraka. JRVIS, help me follow Harvey Ambaraka's news, and let me know if he makes any major moves. Tony Stark ordered. Okay, sir. JRVIS agreed after hearing the words. The second one is delivered. Episode 13. Incomprehensible behavioral logic. It wasn't that Tony Stark hadn't guessed. The real culprit behind the kidnapping may be Harvey Ambaraka. That's why Harvey Ambaraka knew that he had already created the arc reactor. Just according to the information collected by JRVIS, Harvey Ambaraka eats and drinks every day, and sometimes picks up some girls when he is interested, and spends a good night together. Occasionally, I will buy some luxurious and valuable manor villas. Harvey Ambaraka rarely leaves America, and it can be said that he spends 95% of his time in America. Harvey Ambaraka travels basically by driving himself and occasionally racing, and his driving skills seem to be very good. It seems that Harvey Ambaraka fits the bill perfectly, a young man who has made a fortune and thinks he has a lot of time, and likes to hang out and eat. Harvey Ambaraka has never been the candidate to invite when he holds banquets or some exhibitions. So it was the first time they met before today, so Harvey Ambaraka had no opportunity or reason to have an enmity with him. Most importantly, his trip to Afghanistan can be said to be absolutely secretive. After all, this is a cooperation with the military to test fire his latest weapon, so apart from the military, only the closest people around him know about his itinerary. This is also the reason why he completely ruled out the possibility that Harvey Ambaraka was the mastermind after reading all of Harvey Ambaraka's experiences. Thinking of someone who knew his itinerary made Tony Stark's eyes flicker. Although he didn't know where Harvey Ambaraka knew that he had developed the arc reactor. What he knows is that the most important thing for him now is what to do. Tony Stark began to work on the new arc reactor with all his heart and soul. Although he produced the arc reactor in Afghanistan, due to the urgent situation and harsh environment at that time, the arc reactor could be improved. Now this light bulb-like thing is a matter of his life. So Tony Stark didn't feel sleepy at all and started to stay up late. In the afternoon of the next day, the stock price of Stark Industries fell crazily overnight by more than 30 points, and this is not the lowest limit. It can be said that the market value of Stark Industries has directly evaporated by 1/3, and countless shareholders who bought Stark Industries have lost a lot. The news is all about Stark Industries making stupid decisions. There are also many people condemning Tony Stark, asking why he is so stupid. Originally, the playboy in New York was admired by countless people, but because of a decision, many people in New York immediately lost their impression of him. Tony Stark didn't care about these at all. After improving the arc reactor, he asked Pepper to help him install it. Tony Stark immediately went to America Air Force Base to meet Rhodes. The only people he can trust now are Pepper and Rhodes. It's just that Tony Stark touched his nose, and Rhodes didn't agree to cooperate with him. Let Tony Stark can only go home and start secretly making Mark II. Time passed quickly, only 11 days. Tony Stark has successfully produced and tested the Mark II, and has already conducted a test flight. After the test flight, Tony Stark has just decided on the color scheme of the Mark III. But at this moment, Tony Stark suddenly heard JRVIS reporting news other than Mark II. "Sir, the latest major movement of Harvey Ambaraka has been detected. Do you want to report it?" Because these days, Tony Stark has been thinking about Mark II, so the first time his brain was the first time, he didn't think of why JRVIS would suddenly say this. But in just a few seconds, Tony Stark remembered what he told JRVIS to keep an eye on Harvey Ambaraka. "Report, what has he done recently?" The ecstasy brought by the success of the test flight in Tony Stark's heart was diluted a lot, and he asked with some concern. Harvey Ambaraka mortgaged more than half of the real estate and land under his name during the day, prepared $3.55 billion and purchased a large number of shares in Stark Industries. With the shares he currently holds, although he does not have the right to speak, Harvey Ambaraka is fully qualified to sit on the board of directors of Stark Industries. You can listen to some future plans of Stark Industry. And he is also free to come and go to some not-so-secret places in the Stark Industry. JRVIS also said it when he heard the words. Tony Stark heard the news, although he had expected it in his heart, but after finding out that Harvey Ambaraka really did this, his heart was both shocked and full of doubts. What is the reason for this guy to do this time? Tony Stark clearly knows that the current history of Stark Industry is still in a turbulent period. Because of one of his decisions, the stock dropped 40 points. At this time, many people have no time to run, although through the efforts of Obadiah Stein and the board of directors, it can be regarded as temporarily stable near here and will not fall more. However, in order to return to the previous peak, Stark Industries must make some big moves. He also has an idea now, which is to switch to the energy industry. As long as he makes good use of the arc reactor, it will undoubtedly be an industry that is not inferior to arms. But before he could successfully transform Stark Industries, Harvey Ambaraka seemed to have made a big purchase directly without knowing it. It seems to be certain that Stark Industries, will put the stock up again. Because he was kidnapped before, there were some doubts, so Tony Stark planned to search to see if the real culprit was someone close to him. So Tony Stark's decision to switch to the energy industry is still only in his own mind, and he hasn't told anyone about it. Even Xiaojiao, who is closest to him, doesn't know what he is going to do next. There was no news leakage at all, so Tony Stark couldn't understand the logic of Harvey Ambaraka's behavior at all. When the Stark Industry was in full swing and countless people were optimistic about it, Harvey Ambaraka quietly chose to leave the field to earn a lot of money. Then, when the Stark Industry is currently in a downturn and countless people in the outside world are not optimistic, Harvey Ambaraka directly used more funds than before to directly buy a large number of stocks. This gave Tony Stark a feeling that all his secrets seemed to be seen through by Harvey Ambaraka. This feeling made Tony Stark feel a little irritated for no reason. Tony Stark suddenly saw the news at this time. Stark Industries' annual benefit party was reporting his problems, and said he had a concussion. Harvey Ambaraka, did he go to this charity gala? Tony Stark asked. Harvey Ambaraka was invited, but it's not clear if he was there, sir. JRVIS paused and said apologetically. You help me finish the assembly first, don't wait for me, dear. Tony Stark heard that the information could not be collected, looked at the time and left a sentence, and drove out immediately. Episode 14. Reminder. Tony Stark soon rushed to the venue where Stark Industries held a charity ball. This is a dance party for high-class people. There are handsome guys and big shots in expensive clothes, and there are also many young, beautiful, sexy, and glamorous beauties. The arrival of Tony Stark immediately attracted the attention of countless people. After Tony Stark handed over the car to the parking attendant, he glanced around, casually echoing the people who greeted him, trying to find the figure of Harvey Ambaraka. He wanted to have another chat with Harvey Ambaraka, to find out how much he really knew about him. But it's a pity that Tony Stark didn't see Harvey Ambaraka. So Tony Stark could only go to Oba first, and wanted to ask him why he held this charity ball, something he didn't know. The two exchanged a few words, just when Tony was about to go inside and ask Oba for clarification. Accompanied by the roar of the car, an Audi R8 stopped by the side of the road with a handsome elegance. New York is prosperous, but most of the cars of the upper-class people know each other. And the arrival of this silver Audi R8 immediately let most of the people present know who the owner of this car is. Among them, Tony Stark has specially investigated the other party, and definitely knows who the owner of this car is. Soon the car door opened, and a tall and handsome man with black hair and black eyes got out of the car. Directly misappropriated $3.5 billion of working capital and became one of the shareholders of Stark Industries in one fell swoop. In the future, celebrities will have one more person. Some people who knew more news also discussed in low voices when they saw this man coming. He's actually going to the party? He didn't bring a girlfriend this time? Seeing the arrival of Harvey Ambaraka, some young and beautiful women couldn't believe it, but they were also eager to try it. Although Harvey Ambaraka attended Tony Stark's press conference last time, this is undoubtedly Harvey Ambaraka's first appearance at the party. And this kind of charity ball usually needs a female companion, and if you are lucky, you can spend a good night together. Tony Stark stood on the steps, meeting Harvey Ambaraka's eyes. Tony Stark didn't talk nonsense and walked up directly. It is rumored that you don't participate in this kind of occasion. Although I sent you an invitation letter, why did you come this time? Tony Stark came to Harvey and asked. There should be a lot of food here. It happened that I was invited and I had nothing to do, so I decided to take a look. And I feel that you should really want to talk to me now, so I'm here. A smile appeared on Harvey's face when he heard this. So you have time to talk to me? Tony Stark heard the certainty in Harvey Ambaraka's words, and did not deny it. That depends on what you want to talk about. Harvey heard the words and did not give a clear answer. Let's go in and talk. Tony Stark looked around from the corner of his eye when he heard the words, and said. Harvey nodded in agreement, and walked in with Tony Stark. The conversation between the two seemed to have known each other for a long time, which made many people around gossip. Phil Coulson saw that Harvey Ambaraka had also come, and had an unknown conversation with Stark, so he decided to find an opportunity to chat with Stark. Why did you suddenly buy shares in Stark Industries? Stark entered the venue with Harvey, and the two went straight to the unoccupied balcony outside the ball. The reason is definitely that I want to make more money. Harvey looked at the night scene outside and said calmly. So I'm just asking, why are you suddenly bullish on Stark Industries again? Tony Stark heard this foolish answer, and his words were like a question. He couldn't figure it out, so he could only understand it through Harvey Ambaraka. It shouldn't be hard for you to figure out why I did this, right? Harvey heard this, turned his head and glanced at Tony Stark's chest, and said meaningfully. Who told you that? Oba? Just this one glance gave Tony Stark the feeling that his whole body was seen through, his eyes narrowed, he immediately guessed, and tentatively said the most likely name. The dispensable rubbish that can be erased at any time is not worth making friends with me. Harvey said calmly. Tony Stark heard a kind of indifference from Harvey Ambaraka's tone. It's not fake, he can feel it. Obadiah Stanislav is like an insignificant person in Harvey Ambaraka's eyes. But no matter what, Obadiah Stanislav has also cooperated with the military for many years, and he is also a well-known figure in America. What is the basis for Harvey Ambaraka to say these words? I have no grievances or enmities with you, so I just pretend I didn't hear these words. Tony Stark didn't think much of Oba Stannis in his heart, but the other party belonged to the same generation as his father and was also one of the veterans of the Stark industry. So he doesn't say he thinks highly of Obadiah Stanislav, but he doesn't think that the other party is stupid or anything like that, and the relationship he has had over the years is okay. In terms of the various backgrounds and origins of Harvey Ambaraka he investigated, once Obadiah Stane knew that Harvey Ambaraka looked down on him so much. Then what Harvey Ambaraka faces may be a devastating blow. Although Harvey Ambaraka made Tony Stark very unhappy, it has to be said that there is actually no hatred between the two. You actually want to help me hide it? Thank you so much. As a thank you, Tony Stark, I can give you a reminder. I wonder if you want to hear it? When Harvey heard Tony Stark's words, the indifference and calmness in his eyes melted instantly, and a smile appeared on his face. It's not me begging you this time, it's what you want to say. Tony Stark heard that Harvey Ambaraka wanted to give himself a reminder, so he kept an eye out, and made the relationship clear in advance. It's not that I beg you, but you have to say it. Definitely, this is just a thank you gift. Aren't you investigating who deliberately kidnapped you? Trust your instincts and be careful with the other person. After all, even if it is garbage, it may cause some trouble. Harvey saw Tony Stark's frantic disengagement, afraid that he would think that the other party wanted something from him, so he said, How did you know I was kidnapped? When Tony Stark heard that he trusted his intuition, a name appeared in his mind, but he quickly realized that he was about to ask loudly, but immediately lowered his voice. I'm a little hungry, I should go eat something. After hearing this, Harvey glanced at Tony Stark and didn't answer. Instead, he rubbed his belly and walked into the ball as he spoke. Tony Stark saw Harvey Ambaraka crossing the dance floor and walking straight to the table with a lot of delicious food, and he had a lot of questions in his heart. But Harvey Ambaraka's position is obviously not suitable for him to continue talking with Harvey Ambaraka. So he was also forced to temporarily suppress the doubts in his heart, and walked into the dance floor. Episode 15. No weakness. Harvey came to the food area, looked at the dazzling array of delicacies, and picked out a tray by himself. With so much money invested in Stark Industries, he definitely doesn't want to see Tony Stark suddenly capsize in the gutter. So he just came here to have a look, to give Tony Stark a reminder, and stop by here to fill his stomach. Although there are other gourmet restaurants open, those places are obviously not as good as the food that holds such a huge charity ball. The more important thing is that there is no need to wait for these, he just needs to let his appetite go and eat. Tony Stark walked towards the bar with a feeling of depression, and ordered a glass of wine casually. Hi Mr. Tony Stark, I'm Agent Phil Coulson, I met you last time. Phil Coulson saw Tony Stark walking towards the bar, and immediately walked over to introduce him. That's it, right? Land or something. Tony Stark heard what he said and thought of something. Homeland Strategic Defense Offensive and Logistics Support Agency. You remember it all the better. A smile appeared on Phil Coulson's face when he heard this, and corrected him. You should really change your name. Tony Stark had a headache when he heard this series of words. Many people have mentioned this problem, and we are also considering the matter of modification. But let's not talk about it first. This time I'm looking for Mr. Tony Stark because I want to know something. Although I know you are having a hard time recently, we also have to understand something. After Phil Coulson heard that he didn't mind agreeing, he chatted with Tony Stark. I'll think about it. I'll go to my secretary now. Tony Stark responded casually, then found an excuse and left. He went directly to his secretary Pepper, but his eyes were on the food court. When he noticed that Harvey Ambaraka seemed to be really hungry and was eating there, he was also a little speechless. For him, if a charity ball is held, it is just a routine to do some good deeds to gain some good reputation for himself, and to be courteous to some familiar people. But this is only for him, his high status in New York, not many people can compare. But for Harvey Ambaraka, a newly born rich man in New York, being able to attend his charity ball is a good opportunity to meet other wealthy people and meet each other. If you can talk about some big cooperation, you can bring a lot of money. Although you may be looked down upon by others if you take the initiative to chat, but before you really become a big shot in the eyes of others and integrate into this upper circle, these things are inevitable. As a result, Harvey Ambaraka came here, and apart from going up to talk to him for a few words, Harvey Ambaraka really ate on his own, as if he had no intention of making friends with other people at all. Tony Stark thought for a while, and found that he still couldn't understand the logic of Harvey Ambaraka's behavior. When Pepper saw his boss Tony chatting with him, his eyes did not focus on himself but looked elsewhere. She thought that Tony Stark was attracted by other young and beautiful girls, but when she looked around, she realized that was not the case at all. You care about Mr. Harvey Ambaraka? Pepper asked softly as they danced with Tony Stark. Nothing, I was just thinking about something. Upon hearing this question, Tony Stark immediately denied it. The Phil Coulson agent seemed to be very concerned about Harvey Ambaraka before, but he didn't disclose too many details to me. How could Pepper not know Tony Stark's duplicity, and said with a smile. After Pepper's reminder, Tony Stark's brain spun wildly. Phil Coulson came to him just now to ask himself what happened in Afghanistan. Well, when we met last time, Phil Coulson said that he would come to visit again next time, which should be his intention. But instead of asking about what happened in Afghanistan, Phil Coulson went to Harvey Ambaraka to find out some things last time. Although he doesn't know why Phil Coulson is looking for Harvey Ambaraka, but Harvey Ambaraka seems to have a higher priority than him. Thinking that he was actually overthrown by Harvey Ambaraka in terms of priority, Tony Stark felt a little delicate. If it was before, he would definitely feel very upset, but after talking with Harvey Ambaraka just now, Tony Stark knew that Harvey Ambaraka was so mysterious that he couldn't see through Harvey Ambaraka at all. So instead of being unhappy, I was curious about what Phil Coulson was looking for Harvey Ambaraka before. Tony Stark looked back and found that Phil Coulson had disappeared, and his brain recalled the contact information that Phil Coulson had given to him on his own initiative before, and put it on the table. But no matter how he recalled, because he didn't pay much attention to it at the time, he couldn't find any memory related to Phil Coulson's contact information from his mind. Would you like to go to the balcony to get some air? Pepper noticed that Tony Stark seemed to have something on his mind, and she also felt the eyes of her surroundings watching her, so she offered to propose. Good. Tony Stark came back to his senses upon hearing the words, and nodded. Harvey found out that Tony Stark went to the balcony with Pepper, and didn't care. With an elegant manner, Harvey took all the delicious food on the long table in front of him. All the people around looked at Harvey unknowingly. Some young women around saw that the food was decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye under the graceful movements of Harvey Ambaraka. They all looked at Harvey Ambaraka's stomach curiously, trying to figure out where the food went. Obviously Harvey Ambaraka ate so much, but Harvey Ambaraka's stomach didn't swell at all, as if the food had entered a bottomless black hole. But it was also because Harvey Ambaraka was too focused on eating, so even if they wanted to strike up a conversation, they didn't have the right time. They could only watch more and more empty plates. This presents a wonderful phenomenon. Others are chatting and dancing, and Harvey Ambaraka is eating alone. The other men found that their female companions, as well as the women around them, couldn't help but turn their attention to Harvey Ambaraka. On the surface, they are out of bearing and occasion, although they don't show it on the surface, but they are somewhat contemptuous in their hearts. Harvey Ambaraka, a young man who has just risen, it's fine if he doesn't take the initiative to greet them in order to cooperate, but he is still pretending to be a big appetite for grandstanding. Harvey didn't pay any attention to the gazes around him. This charity gala is filled with 10 tables of all kinds of delicacies from mountains and seas, all of which have a lot of evolution points. Harvey ate 8 of them and directly obtained 530,000 evolution points, so he stopped eating. If Harvey wanted to eat, there was not enough for him to eat, but he couldn't be too extreme, there were hundreds of people present, so he had to leave some food for others. The evolution points obtained during this trip are directly equivalent to Harvey's 3 to 4 days' worth, which is considered a worthwhile trip. The women around were originally curious to see Harvey Ambaraka eat 1 table, but later Harvey Ambaraka ate 7 tables in a row. Almost all the food for hundreds of people entered Harvey Ambaraka's stomach, and they were not curious, but rather incredulous. Harvey wiped his mouth with a handkerchief elegantly, poured out the last bottle of fine wine on the table, drank it to moisten his throat, and left. The food for these 8 tables plus the fine wine on display cost at least $2 million, but Harvey Ambaraka ate and drank them all. It's fine for Harvey Ambaraka to drink up so much good wine. If he makes a fool of himself when he's drunk, it's still a joke for them, leaving them with something to talk about after dinner. But Harvey Ambaraka didn't look drunk at all, and didn't even blush. This astonishing amount of food and drink made the eyelids of the man who originally despised Harvey Ambaraka twitch a few times. For a long time, this Harvey Ambaraka didn't come here to make friends at all, but came here to empty his family. With this amount of food, whoever holds a party or some celebrations in the future, even if they want to invite Harvey Ambaraka, have to weigh whether they have allocated so much budget for food. If you don't have that much budget, you really can't just invite this big eater with good teeth. The women looked at Harvey Ambaraka's unshakable body, expecting that Harvey Ambaraka would go up to strike up a conversation if he was drunk. So some young women were also watching the whole process, but Harvey Ambaraka didn't look drunk at all after eating and drinking from the beginning to the end, and they were all disappointed. Harvey Ambaraka's identity is not as good as some of the big shots present, but Harvey Ambaraka is young, handsome, tall, and rich. Even if you put aside the golden side, with Harvey Ambaraka wrapped under the suit, you can still see the tall and straight figure of the muscular body. It is enough for some young rich women present to have some ideas in their hearts, to take care of them occasionally, and to have a taste of Asian flavor. It's a pity that they can afford other handsome young guys, but Harvey Ambaraka is something they can't afford at all. Some of the women at the dance party didn't hide their disappointment, which made the other men a little upset. The mere presence of Harvey Ambaraka attracted most of the attention and stole the show. Let them start thinking about how to make Harvey Ambaraka suffer. As long as you are human, you will definitely have weaknesses, so what is Harvey Ambaraka's weakness? For example, family members or friends, and some companies under the name. It wouldn't be hard to hit Harvey Ambaraka with some power and wealth through weakness. A group of big shots began to think about Harvey Ambaraka's intelligence. But after thinking about it, they couldn't find Harvey Ambaraka's weakness. Although Harvey Ambaraka is an emerging rich man in New York, he is also a completely solitary existence apart from the rich man in New York. If you want to hit Harvey Ambaraka, there is only one place to start, and that is the stock. But Harvey Ambaraka's current holdings are mostly Stark Industries. If they wanted to take down Harvey Ambaraka, it meant taking on Stark Industries. What a joke, they're attending the Stark Industries charity ball right now. As for the impact on the property prices under the name of Harvey Ambaraka, it will not drop so easily. Even if they wanted to, the officials would not allow them to spread rumors wantonly, causing house prices to drop sharply.